I'm in the world of Naruto as a civil engineer. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 1 Water Diversion Project. The Fourth Kazekage Rasa was a very decisive person. Even when he gave the order to assassinate his own son, he did not hesitate at all. But this time, he looked at the stack of papers in his hand and showed a very tangled expression. After a long time, he put down the papers, rubbed his brows, and then said to a young boy in front of him, "Mr. Yamashita, you really gave me a big problem. Although your plan is indeed very beneficial to our sand village, the ideas in it are a bit too unrealistic. Even with my knowledge as the Fourth Kazekage, I think this plan is a fantasy. However, you have indeed made some jaw-dropping achievements in the ninja world in the past few years. For you, I still have some fantasies. You really make me hesitate." If it was someone else standing in front of him today, he would probably have kicked this person out long ago, but the person who came to him was this Yamashita Kenji, which made him have to take it seriously. No one knows where this Yamashita Kenji came from. People only know that this guy unified almost all the entertainment industries in the Kingdom of Soup within half a year. After that, he didn't know how he got the trust of the daimyo of the Kingdom of Soup, and almost gave him full authority to build the country. After that, this guy built a lot of buildings on the land of the Kingdom of Soup, repairing roads, digging canals, building dams, and building high-rise buildings. In just 2 years, the country of Soup has a brand new look, and it has left the other countries far behind. More importantly, this guy has done so much infrastructure, but he hardly spent a penny of the Kingdom of Soup. This guy founded a company called Yamashita Industry, and all the projects were undertaken by this company. Although the company had a certain loss in the early stage, when the construction of the Kingdom of Soup became better and better, it attracted celebrities and businessmen from all over the ninja world to buy houses and land. In fact, it has become the commercial and entertainment center of the ninja world. Not only did he recover all the previous investment by buying houses, but he also obtained a lot of fixed assets from all over the Kingdom of Soup, which can be said to have made a lot of money. Just when this guy was making a lot of money and attracted the fear of the daimyo of Tang country, he spent a lot of money to build universal hospitals and schools in various parts of Tang country and founded the Yamashita Poverty Alleviation Fund to help the poor people of Tang country overcome difficulties. This behavior undoubtedly made him a godlike existence in the hearts of the people of Tang country. It can be said that if he wanted, the position of the daimyo of Tang country would be almost within reach. It is precisely because of this that the daimyo of Tang country was also afraid to do anything to him. Although Tang country is a small country, this man was able to build it to a height that even the 5 major countries could not reach. Not to mention his strength, his ability in economics should be the first in the ninja world. Although he had invited him and hoped that he could invest in the construction of Wind Country, he knew his own business. It was almost impossible to attract people to the environment of Wind Country full of yellow sand. However, what he did not expect was that this Yamashita Kenji actually came and brought him such a shocking plan. Hearing Ilyusha's words, Yamashita Kenji, as if he had known this long ago, took out a shelf from his side, on which was a map of the ninja realm. He held a teaching stick in his hand and spoke to the other party. "Mr. Kazekage, your thinking is too narrow-minded and not bold enough. For the impoverished and weak Wind Country, I'm sorry to say that you are not a suitable leader. In the plan, I have already demonstrated in detail the feasibility of my water diversion project, but you still have some concerns, which really disappoints me. However, fortunately, I'm a person who does not want to see the suffering of the world. Seeing the people of the Wind Country suffer in the vast yellow sand is what I don't want to see, so I'm willing to tell you more about my plan." Although he was ridiculed by the other party, Ilyusha was not annoyed, but pretended to listen carefully. As everyone knows, in our Wind Kingdom, except for a few oases, the rest is yellow sand. There is no rain all year round and almost no groundwater. And surrounding the Wind Kingdom, there is the Rain Kingdom with heavy rain all year round, and the River Kingdom with a very developed river system. The dry and wet, they are like 2 different worlds, which is obviously abnormal. Therefore, our team has finally figured out the reason after several years of research. Hearing this, Alyosha straightened himself. Although he had already learned about it in the plan, it was a different feeling to hear the reason from the other party. Yamashita Kenji pointed his teaching stick at a mountain range, where the wind country and the rain country meet, and said with certainty, the cause of all this is this mountain range that stretches for tens of thousands of miles, and serves as the border between the two countries, the Shanjan Mountain. Because of the obstruction of the Shanjan Mountain, the moist monsoon blowing from the North Sea cannot reach the wind country, and all of it is left in the rain country, which also causes the heavy rain in the rain country and the long-term drought in the wind country. Alyosha nodded seriously. Although the level of technology in the ninja world is very general, it has already had concepts such as monsoons and rainfall principles. However, for many years, no one has ever thought about the cause of the drought in the wind country from this perspective. Now that he has been enlightened by the other party, he understands the reason. Knowing the reason, it seems much easier to improve the environment of the wind country. Yamashita Kenji said confidently. The simplest way is to blow up Shanjan Mountain directly. In this way, the barrier blocking the rain clouds will disappear, and the moist air from the North Sea will come to the Kingdom of Wind. By then, the climate of the Kingdom of Wind should be the same as that of the Kingdom of Fire, with abundant rainfall, enough for the country to be self-sufficient. And because of the reduction of moist air, the climate of the Kingdom of Rain will gradually become normal. In this way, their development will not stagnate due to years of rainfall. This method can almost be said to kill two birds with one stone. Yamashita's plan was not mentioned in the plan. Alyosha was stunned by the other party's boldness. He waved his hands and said, the Shanjan Mountain stretches for tens of thousands of miles, and is thousands of feet high. It is almost entirely made of stone. We can't blast a gap in such a magnificent natural wonder. Even Ashirama Senju, who is known as a god of ninja, can't do it. Of course Ashirama Senju can do it. Kenji Yamashita complained in his heart, but did not say it out loud. Instead, he said, everything depends on human effort. I think as long as the sand village is united and works together, and exerts the spirit of Yugong moving mountains, it will definitely be done. If one generation cannot accomplish it, 2 generations will accomplish it. If 2 generations cannot accomplish it. Stop. Mr. Yamashita, please tell me about the plan in the plan. Alyosha hurriedly interrupted the other party's behavior of getting excited. Good guy, if 1 generation cannot accomplish it, 2 generations will accomplish it. If he really dares to mobilize manpower to do such a thing, the people of their wind country will definitely overthrow him. This Mr. Yamashita looks gentle, but the plans he said are really more shocking than the last. Is that so? Yamashita Kenji sighed with some approval, then said, then let's talk about the second plan. We noticed that, although Shanjan Mountain is thousands of feet high, it also has some relatively weak and low places. We plan to drill a channel from Shanjan Mountain, completely penetrating the Rain Kingdom and the Wind Kingdom. In this way, although we still can't let the clouds pass over Shanjan Mountain, we can use this channel to guide the abundant freshwater resources of the Rain Kingdom to the Wind Kingdom. With a little guidance, the overall water shortage problem in the Wind Kingdom can be greatly improved. This is a second plan. Although it can't solve the problem once and for all, it is light, and the workload is not large. Alyosha's eyebrows jumped, and he pointed helplessly at the territory of the Wind Kingdom on the map, and said, you call this a small workload? Because most of its territory is desert, the Kingdom of Wind is actually the largest of the 5 major countries, and its population is relatively dispersed. Therefore, if you really want to transport water to the major towns in the Kingdom of Wind, the amount of work is so huge that it is not an exaggeration to say that it is the largest in the ninja world. Moreover, given the harsh environment in the Kingdom of Wind, how to stably transport water from the Kingdom of Rain is also a huge problem. And this is exactly why Alyosha hesitated. Don't worry, Mr. Kazekage. Yamashita threw the teaching stick aside and said, for this project, our Yamashita Industrial Company has formulated 2 cooperation plans. One is that your village will pay and hire our company to complete the project. When the project is completed, the project will be fully operated by you. Of course, you will also have to bear the risks yourself. The second one is that our company will be fully responsible for all the work of this project, and your village only needs to assist. In this way, whether the project succeeds or not, the village will not suffer any losses. However, at that time, the project will be jointly owned by our company and your village, and the profits generated will also be divided among us. There are two plans, one with high risks and large capital requirements, but lucrative profits. The other is risk-free, and does not require capital, but the profits are much less. It's up to you to decide which plan to choose. After Yamashita Kenji finished speaking, he stopped talking, and waited for the other party's response. Ilyusha was already somewhat tempted, but after all, such a big thing was not something he could decide alone. He needed to seek the opinions of the daimyo and the assistant Kazekage. So, he stood up, shook hands with the other party in a friendly manner, and said, "I understand, Mr. Yamashita. This matter is not something I can decide alone. How about this, you stay in the village for a while, and I will inform you when I make a decision. But don't worry, no matter what the final result of this matter is, you are the most distinguished friend of us and village." Yamashita Kenji nodded, and then he was taken away from the Kazekage building by the sand villagers and Boo, and arranged in a guest house. "Kakuzu, stay here for 2 days first. I believe our Kazekage should be able to distinguish the pros and cons of the matter." A strange man came forward, and Yamashita Kenji patted the other person's shoulder and said. Kakuzu looked at the sand village ninjas standing by, and said with some disdain, "Kazekage? Such a good thing that comes to your doorstep actually needs to be considered. It's no wonder that a village led by such a person is so poor. The value of the entire village is probably not as much as the bounty on his head on the black market." "What did you say, you guy?" Being mocked in front of others, the sand village ninjas were also annoyed and wanted to take action directly. But seeing Yamashita Kenji standing by, they injured it and retreated obediently. This person is very important to their village. At least for now, they can't provoke him. "Okay, Kakuzu, you guy, don't you know how to pay attention to the occasion when you speak? Go back to your room first, I need to rest," Yamashita said. Kakuzu nodded and then went back to his room directly. Chapter 2, Those Years as a Civil Engineering Dog in the Naruto World. Kenji Yamashita returned to his room and lay down on the bed. After thinking for a long time, he finally let out a long breath and said to himself, the plan has finally begun. Kenji Yamashita is a time traveler from China. He traveled to the comic world of Naruto about 3 years ago. Unlike many predecessors of time travel, he did not travel to the center of the ninja world, Konoha village, but came to the country of soup, which was not well known in the original work, and became an ordinary beggar on the side of the road. This start can be described as hell. Fortunately, he came with a system when he traveled. Thinking about it, he had an idea and a virtual panel appeared in front of him. Large infrastructure system host, Yamashita Kenji age 16 talent, space-time talent chakra attributes, wind, water, fire, thunder, earth, yin, yang ninjutsu, basic ninjutsu collection, basic 5 escaping techniques collection, multiple shadow clone technique, flying thunder god technique. Physical technique, Jounin level physical technique Jinjutsu, non-special ability, negotiation mastery overall strength assessment, quasi-cage level ongoing tasks, wind country south to north water diversion project, completion 0%, completed tasks, Tang country water channel reconstruction project, Tang country urban planning project, Tang country road construction project. This system is the key to his survival in this world. This large infrastructure system will give corresponding rewards based on the number and scale of projects completed by the host in this world. The selection and planning of the projects are all decided by the host himself. In comparison, it can be said to be very relaxed. Because of this, he started with small projects in the Kingdom of Soup, and gradually became the largest construction contractor in the Kingdom of Soup and even in the entire ninja world. However, although he had built the Kingdom of Soup to be as developed as some third-tier cities in his previous life, the biggest reward he received was only a time-space talent in the Flying Thunder God technique. In addition, there were various basic ninjutsu gift packs, chakra talents of different attributes, and some knowledge about infrastructure. Although the flying thunder god technique is already a very powerful ninjutsu in the ninja world, this ninjutsu alone almost made him invincible, but his means of attack were mediocre. The fourth Hokage at least used the Rasengan to get the title of Yellow Flash on the battlefield, and with his ridiculously low talent, even if he knew the way to practice, it was impossible for him to develop the Rasengan alone. Therefore, if he wanted to improve his strength, he still had to rely on the system. Especially after his wealth accumulated more and more, and after several assassinations and threats, he became more determined to do so. The development potential of the Kingdom of Soup has basically reached its limit, so he turned his attention to the 5 major countries. That's how the plan came about. After today's conversation, he believed that with his ingenious plan and the skill of negotiation mastery given by the system, this project was basically a done deal. The next thing to think about was how to complete such a huge project. To be honest, although he had sufficient experience in infrastructure in the Kingdom of Soup, facing such a terrifying large project, he still felt like he had no idea where to start. Fortunately, there are still black technologies like ninjutsu in this ninja world. Many problems that were unsolvable in the previous life are not a problem in this world. Dang. At this moment, his door was knocked. Yamashita opened the door and found that the people knocking on his door were 2 little ghosts, a well-behaved little lolly, and a little boy with oil paint on his face. He recognized the identities of the 2 people almost instantly, the children of the 4th Kazekage Rasa, Temari and Kankuro. As for why the 2 siblings have different surnames, this kind of thing is very normal in the Naruto world. After all, Rasa's surname is not Rab, you 2 are. Although he already knew the identities of the 2, he still asked, "Hello, Lord Yamashita, we are the children of Lord Rasa. This time, we are assigned by Lord Kazekage to lead you to visit the Sand Village." Temari said obediently. The other party's words directly pointed out his identity, obviously showing the village's trust and attention to him. Is that so? Speaking of which, I really haven't visited this top 5 ninja village in the entire ninja world. Okay, then I'll trouble you. As he said, he packed up and walked out of the room with the 2. The sand village was built on an oasis, so although the outside of the village is a piece of yellow sand, the village is still good, with their own circulation system. Along the way, Yamashita saw many customs that were very different from those in the land of hot springs. They looked novel and had a strange beauty. Especially the sand sculpture art of the sand village, which was the best in the entire ninja world. The sand sculpture artists in our sand village are the greatest in the entire ninja world. Even if they are an unknown sand sculpture artist in the village, they will be crushed in other countries, and will receive the highest level of courtesy. Temari said very proudly. Although I don't know why art can still develop so vigorously in this world of constant war, it is also a very good thing to have these things as embellishments in such a world dominated by fighting. He walked forward and looked at the lifelike eagle in front of him and couldn't help but marvel. It's really ingenious. People actually created such a beautiful treasure on such a barren land. It's really amazing, Yamashita said with emotion. So, I want the people of Wind Country to live a better life and let them create more treasures that shine with human civilization. The 2 little ghosts were stunned, and then they were moved and said, "Mr. Yamashita, your ambition is really great. No matter what the result is, you are the most honorable friend of our Wind Country." Yamashita smiled. He always felt that he didn't get rich in his previous life because he chose the wrong path. If he became a success lecturer or a pyramid scheme, he might have been financially free long ago. At this moment, the sand sculpture in front of Yamashita suddenly melted like ice, and a kunai attacked him directly in the face. "Mr. Yamashita, be careful." Temari was startled and quickly pulled Yamashita aside to avoid the kunai, while Kankuro had already rushed up and fought with the attacking ninja. Whoosh, whoosh. 2 more kunai were fired, and the 2 men dodged them narrowly. At this time, in addition to the craftsmen who had no fighting power, the number of attackers in the field had increased to 3. They were able to break into the hinterland of the sand village to carry out the assassination mission. Obviously, the identity of the mastermind behind the scenes was very complicated, and it was likely to be one of the 5 major countries. The assassins obviously knew that they could not delay. Seeing that the kunai did not hit the target, they rushed up again without any hesitation. One of them fought with Temari, and the other rushed down the mountain. Die. No. Bang. The ninja who rushed down the mountain was thrown far away, bounced twice on the ground, and then stopped. Blood flowed from the corners of his mouth, nose, and eyes, and he twitched from time to time. It was obvious that he was not going to survive. The situation on the field changed several times, and everyone could not help but cast their eyes in the direction of the mountain. At this time, in front of him, stood a ninja in a black robe, and it was Kakuzu. Sure enough, hiring you as our company's financial director and my personal bodyguard is a very wise decision. It is basically impossible to find a bodyguard more powerful than you in the ninja world, Yamashita said with a smile. Don't flatter me. Kakuzu said coolly, if you really think I'm so powerful, why not just give me a raise? How can that be? We signed a contract. The spirit of the contract. The spirit of the contract. Humph, you black-hearted capitalist. Chapter 3, Technical Ability, number 1 in the ninja world. Hey Kakuzu. Why are you always so serious? You have to enjoy life once in a while. The special sand bath in the Kingdom of Wind is very famous. It is said that it can make people feel the warmth of a mother's embrace. Kakuzu, don't you miss your mother? Do you want to try it? Yamashita Kenji lay comfortably in the sand, with 2 cucumber slices in front of his eyes, looking relaxed, not like he had just been assassinated. Kakuzu shuddered and suppressed the idea of killing his boss. His mother? That should have happened more than 100 years ago, right? Is it really polite to say that? Not interested. Kakuzu said coolly, and then took out a small notebook and wrote something on it. I say, Kakuzu, is it really necessary to calculate the accounts every day? Yamashita said helplessly. Although Kakuzu can be said to be the most suitable financial officer in the world, sometimes he is too competent. He is still on a business trip with his leader, and he actually takes out the account book every day to calculate. If you don't know, you would think he is going to kill his leader. As the company's financial and shareholder, I think I need to remind you a little bit. Kakuzu ignored Yamashita's complaints and said to himself, every day you stay in Sand Village now, the company will lose millions of taels. This loss is naturally a drop in the bucket compared to your total assets, but it is a loss that cannot be ignored for the development of the company. Yamashita spread his hands helplessly, pointed to the 2 people who were doing the traditional art of Neon Country, bowing, and said, isn't this impossible? Look at these 2 people, they are still apologizing here. I have to wait for their news of the Kazekage, right? Red Bean Paste Private Marcel. Temari and Kankuro bowed to the bottom again to express their apologies. Okay, I've said it a long time ago, don't worry about that kind of thing. Don't I have nothing to do? Instead of wasting time with me here, you might as well go and persuade your father to give me a quick answer. Yamashita Kenji said helplessly. I'm really sorry that you were frightened in Sand Village. This is our negligence. Temari apologized to Yamashita again. The assassin has been caught. I believe it won't be long before the identity of that group of people will be found out. It doesn't matter. It's nothing more than those few forces. We can guess it. Yamashita said indifferently. At this time, a group of Anbu from the Sand Village arrived and invited Yamashita to the Kazekage's office again. Just 1 day later, Yamashita returned to the office again. Please allow me to express my most sincere apologies to you again. Alyosha said, that group of ninjas have been restricted by their tongues. We have not yet obtained their identities. Yamashita Kenji raised his eyebrows. Restrictions on the tongue, seal of the tongue to eliminate trouble? Isn't this the method of Danzo? Such an obvious method, how could Alyosha not know it? Or does this guy want me to find out the truth of the matter myself? So he revealed this very indicative news. After all, in general, Konoha is still their ally now. Suppressing the doubts in his heart, Yamashita Kenji said, Mr. Kazekage, I don't care much about those things. Now the only thing I want to confirm is whether you agree with my plan or not. Luosha nodded. I invited you to come here this time mainly to explain this point. As he said that, 2 old ninjas walked in from the outside, sat on both sides of Luosha, one on the left and one on the right, and looked at Yamashita. These 2 are our seniors in the Sand Village. This time we came here to listen to your plan. The two of them greeted Yamashita Kenji politely at the same time, looking like they were all ears. Yamashita naturally knew these two people, Chiyo and Ibizo, and said bluntly that the three people in front of him should be the three strongest people in the entire sand village. It must be said that the ninja pool of the sand village is too shallow. In a few years, there will be only one of the three people left, and they have to rely on Gaara, who is less than 20 years old, to carry the banner. It is really unworthy of the title of the five great nations. Of course, that was all later. At least now, the people here are still very strong when they unite. He adjusted his thoughts, and then explained his plan to the people in front of him again. This was the third time he had told the plan. To be honest, he still had some resentment in his heart. It was obviously a very beneficial thing for the other party, but he hesitated for every possible means, and had to let himself rush. No one would be happy about this. He had already decided that, if the other party was still hesitant this time, then the plan would be directly invalidated, and he would think about other engineering plans. After listening to Yamashita's story, Chiyo and Ibizo showed shocked expressions as he expected, and were shocked by this shocking plan. But after all, he was an old guy who had lived for decades, and he still had some temperament. After a while, he returned to normal. After a moment of silence, Chiyo spoke. Although Lord Kazekage has told us, please forgive us for being frank. This matter is a bit too scary, and it will have a far-reaching impact on our sand village. So I hope you can forgive us for being cautious. I understand, Yamashita said without comment. Then, I have a few questions for you to answer. Although the vision you described to us is very good, the difficulty of this huge project can be imagined. I wonder if your company has the technology to serve as the technical support for this project? This is a doubt about the technical strength of Yamashita's company. This is of course reasonable. After all, with the technical strength of one of the five major countries, they are a little overwhelmed by this project. Does a company in this small country have such technical strength? Kenji Yamashita had expected this and said confidently, don't worry about this. Our company has accumulated a lot of experience in the construction of Hot Spring Country. The prosperity of Hot Spring Country now is the best proof of our technical strength. In addition, our company's desire and cherishment for technical talents is also obvious to the entire ninja world. We have established the Yamashita Science Research Institute. All the talents hired will not only be given high salaries, but also a large flat in Tangchan Yipin, the most prosperous community in Hot Spring Country, to solve their worries. With such treatment, the Yamashita Science Research Institute has achieved remarkable results in recent years. To put it bluntly, the entire ninja world, even the five major countries combined, cannot compare with our company in terms of technical strength in infrastructure. Kenji Yamashita's words were loud and clear, and the confidence contained in them was known to passers-by. Chapter 4 Project Progress Improvement. After hearing what Yamashita Kenji said, the three looked at each other and could not question him. Just as he said, the other party was already the company with the strongest infrastructure technology in the ninja world. Even if they wanted to question it, they could only question themselves. Then, the second question. Ibizo took over the conversation and said, you said that water will be diverted from the rain country to our wind country. How can you make the rain country agree to this plan? How can you guarantee that after the success of this project, the other party will not use this as a threat to indirectly control our wind country? The other party was indeed a person who had been in power for many years. He immediately saw the hidden dangers behind the project. However, Yamashita had already thought about this matter, so he said without hesitation, you don't have to worry about this either. Our water use is not free. We will give money to the rain country according to the amount of water used. Being able to exchange a large amount of money for the abundant resources of our country, I think any leader of the rain country with a clear mind will not refuse such a thing. As for whether the other party will use this to threaten the wind country, you don't have to worry about this. Firstly, the comprehensive national strength of the rain country is not as good as that of the wind country. If the two sides fall out, the wind country may not suffer. Secondly, we plan to implement this project in 3 lines. In addition to the 2 lines from the rain country, we will also open up a line in the river country, which will greatly increase the amount of water diverted. At the same time, because water is diverted from both countries at the same time. Under mutual constraints, the three parties dare not do things too much. After Kenji Yamashita's explanation, all the doubts of the three people almost disappeared. If they still hesitated about such a generous thing, they would really become the eternal sinners of the wind country. Well, there is one last question. Alyosha said seriously, and then became friendly. Why is the name of this project called Water Diversion from South to North? Geographically speaking, our wind country is in the south, right? That's because water diversion from north to south is too ugly, and he also wants to use this name to commemorate his motherland in his previous life. Naturally, Yamashita Kenji would not say this directly. After a while of silence, he said, "This is some historical problems left over from our company. The original intention of this project was to transport the water source of the rain country to the equally arid land of Earth. However, due to various reasons, the end point of this project was changed to the wind country, but the name of the project remained." Alyosha nodded, and then smiled and said, "Mr. Yamashita has thought it over carefully. If we don't agree, it would be a bit ungrateful." He stood up and shook hands with Yamashita Kenji, and this matter was completely settled. Yamashita Kenji was also relieved in his heart. It was worth his hard work in the past 2 days. Fortunately, the result will be good. Then, I wonder what kind of cooperation model your village wants to choose. Alyosha said, "It's like this. Although we are the beneficiaries of this project, your company has paid the most. This is a bit too unfair. So, we discussed before that our wind country will provide part of the funds needed for this project. Similarly, when this project is officially put into operation in the future, your company will also be eligible to draw a commission from it. Although the other party's two plans are very tempting to them, they are a bit too harsh for the other party's company. Although they don't care whether the other party's company can benefit, if the conditions are too harsh, then there may be passive slacking and inferior products. Therefore, for the long term, they still took out a part of the profit and pulled the other party into the community of interests so that they can ensure that the other party will do their best. That's easy to say," Yamashita Kenji said with a smile, and then pointed at Kakuzu, who had been silent behind him. "For the specific details, you can discuss with my company's financial officer, Mr. Kakuzu." Kakuzu stepped forward, showing an ugly smile, and said, "Everyone, please." The three people swallowed their saliva involuntarily, frightened by Kakuzu's momentum. This momentum did not come from the other party's strength, but from the other party's obsession with money. Using this person to negotiate the details, the other party may be well prepared, and their village will bleed heavily. All the negotiations were handed over to Kakuzu. "I believe that the stingy man should be able to negotiate the best price." He walked out of the room and focused his eyes on the virtual panel in front of him. Just now, when the two shook hands, his system changed. Task in progress. Wind Country South to North Water Diversion Project. Completion 0%. 1%. Congratulations to the host for officially launching the Wind Country South to North Water Diversion Project. Reward. Cage level chakra volume increase suddenly. A surge of feeling came from his body, and Yamashita Kenji felt his chakra volume increasing rapidly, until it increased by more than doubled, and then slowly calmed down. He originally had quasi-cage level chakra, and now it has increased again. To be frank, the chakra volume of ordinary cage level ninjas cannot be compared with his own. Of course, the amount of chakra does not represent everything, otherwise the Uzumaki clan would not have been exterminated by others. A huge amount of chakra plus powerful ninjutsu is the key to a ninja's strength. Take him for example. Although the amount of chakra has increased, but the means of attack are still the same, so his strength has not increased much. Of course, the increase in the blow upper limit is a good thing for him after all. Moreover, the project has just begun, and there is such a generous reward. It is conceivable that when the project is really completed, how generous the reward will be. I'm afraid that by then, a small karami like Uchiha Madara will be no problem for me, right? Putting away his fantasy, Yamashita Kenji happily ate a special delicacy sandworm in the village, enjoying the exotic food. To be honest, it is far inferior to Chinese food. If I'm interested in the future, I can start a catering company in this world and specialize in Chinese food. It will definitely be a hit. At this time, Kakuzu has also returned and gave Yamashita a reassuring look. Obviously, the Sand Village must have shed a lot of money to make Kakuzu so satisfied. But these are secondary. With the money printing machine of the Kingdom of Soup, I have long been the richest man in the ninja world. Now he can really say without hesitation, I'm not interested in money at all. What he wants is nothing more powerful and a longer life. And these are what his system can give him. Therefore, the projects he presided over must not fail, and anyone who dared to stop him would be destroyed by him. I hope you, Nagato, don't be so ungrateful, Yamashita Kenji said silently. Chapter 5 The Capitalist's Idea. After dealing with the matters in the Kingdom of Wind, Yamashita did not stop and went directly to the Kingdom of Rain. As long as the leaders of the Kingdom of Rain agree to this plan, their project can start directly. As for the situation in the Kingdom of Rain, I'm afraid that in the entire ninja world, few people can understand their situation better than Yamashita Kenji. Of course, now that the Kingdom of Wind has joined, this project is not something that Yamashita can decide alone. The Kingdom of Wind also sent a team to discuss related matters. The leader of this team is the senior ninja Maki, and the members are Temari, Kankuro and Gaara. Basically, it is the team of the Kingdom of Wind that participated in the Chunin exam. In fact, from this point, we can also see to what extent the talent gap in the Kingdom of Wind has reached. The Konohazio Kiangs, who are almost the same as the three, are still conscientiously doing the genin tasks, but Gaara and the other two are going to do this kind of task that concerns the future of the village. Although Maki had a record of killing Gekauge in the original work, his strength was actually just that. It was obviously very reluctant to use him as the representative of the village. However, these were not important to Yamashita Kenji. This team was now based on himself. Even if the team of Sand Village was average, he would not let them suffer. This was why Uosha dared to let these people represent Sand Village. He himself went to the capital of the Wind Country to discuss this matter with the daimyo of the Wind Country. The road was not interesting. Yamashita did not covet any tailed beasts, so he was not interested in Gaara. Although this guy had psychological problems, he was generally controllable. His psychological problems should be treated by Naruto. Of course, bringing the one tail to Nagato was still very risky. However, he was also confident that he had the Flying Thunder God technique. Not to mention defeating Nagato, it was not a problem to simply protect Gaara in front of him. Moreover, it was not the time for Akatsuki to act, so the other party would not make things difficult for him and others. After all, although Nagato was considered the #1 terrorist in the ninja world, his original intention was to keep the ninja world peaceful. His project would benefit the Rain Country for the present and future generations, so he should be able to weigh the pros and cons himself. Of course, if the other party wanted to find fault, didn't they still have Kakuzu, who had fought the first generation Hokage to a draw? It would not be a big problem for him to deal with the young man Nagato. Kakuzu, what? I fight Nagato? Compared to Gaara, who had a better face, Yamashita Kenji was very interested in Kankuro. To be more precise, it was his puppetry. Although this secret technique was not very good in the comics, it was undoubtedly very useful for Yamashita, the capitalist in the ninja world. The puppets were like robots. Ordinary puppeteers could control 2 or 3 puppets at the same time, while stronger puppeteers could control puppets in the double digits. Chiyo's Jinsang 10 people can control 10 puppets by one person. Scorpion's 100 machines operation can control hundreds of puppets by one person. Not to mention the fully automatic puppet group of the Otsutsuki clan on the moon, which is like artificial intelligence. Is there any more cost-effective worker than this? If he hired such a group of ninjas who can use puppetry, the efficiency of their projects would be soaring, right? Exclamation mark. Of course, such a face is a bit too ugly, so he didn't tell Uosha about this matter. He decided to learn about the relevant content of puppetry from Kanjuro first, and then talk about hiring the puppet troops of Sand Village, if there is a chance in the future. Yamashita made a good first impression on Kanjuro, so Kanjuro naturally knew everything about his questions. Except for some things involving secret techniques and village secrets, he told Yamashita everything. While talking, they came to the Land of Rain. As soon as they entered the territory of the rain country, a stream of water vapor hit them in the face, and the drizzle hit everyone's body, and an indescribable coolness surged into their hearts. It was just a mountain range, and there was such a huge difference. The ingenious workmanship of nature was really amazing. Feeling the abundant water vapor in this country, the people of the wind country had a deeper understanding of Yamashita's previous plan. The people of the wind country in the desert were too miserable. If it was really as the other party described, the water source of the rain country could be brought to the wind country, maybe it would really turn their desert into an oasis? The eyes of the people looking at the mountain became different again, and it was a complex look mixed with admiration and respect. Knowing that this group of people came from the wind country, in order to discuss cooperation, the ninjas of the rain country did not dare to neglect it. First, they arranged everyone in a hotel, and then one of them took the plan written by Yamashita to the central tower of the rain country. Not long after, someone came and hoped that Yamashita and others could meet with the leader of the rain country. Then, they were led by the other party to a high tower, all the way up to a floor. Waiting for everyone on this floor was a blue-haired woman, wearing a black-bottomed red cloud robe. Her whole body was covered, and she looked like she was keeping people away. Is this the new ruler of the rain country? I didn't expect it to be a woman, Maki said in surprise. According to the information from their sand village, there was indeed a coup in the rain country before, and the ruler Hanzo was killed, and the power of the entire country has fallen into the hands of others. However, the information they got was just that. Although they sent several ninjas to scout, there was no news. The rain country was like a black hole, swallowing up everyone who wanted to get close. This time, sending him here may not be without the mission of gathering intelligence. I'm the spokesperson for the leader of the rain village. You can call me Angel. The woman's voice was very cold, as if she was keeping people at a distance. Is that so? Then, Miss Angel, what does your leader think of my plan? Yamashita naturally knew that the person in front of him was Conan. There was nothing wrong with saying that she was the incarnation of Nagato's will. Yamashita was not interested in exposing her disguise. What he wanted to do now was to speed up the project. The plan does look very tempting. It is very beneficial to both the wind country and the rain country, Conan said lightly. Moreover, I think you should have filled in all the loopholes in the wind country to convince the envoy of the wind country to come. Maybe this plan is already perfect for the wind country, but from the perspective of the rain country, I do want to ask you a question. Conan paused, then said, that is, once this project is officially launched, how can you guarantee the safety of the rain country? Chapter 6. This is not a request, but a blessing. Our rain country is adjacent to the three great countries of wind, earth, and fire, and it became the battlefield of the Great Power War during the Second Ninja World War. It is for this reason that we have to take into account the reactions of the other great powers in everything we do. Admittedly, the plan you proposed is a very beneficial plan for both the wind and rain countries, but have you considered the ideas of the other two great powers? Once this project is successful, it will inevitably increase the national strength of the wind country. In this case, are you sure that the earth and fire countries will be willing to see such a result? The wind country is a great power, so there is no need to fear the prying of the other two countries. But for our rain country, even being remembered by such a big country is a very difficult thing. If they want, they can just find an excuse to start a war in the rain country and destroy some facilities, including the South to North Water Diversion Project. This kind of thing is completely easy for them. Xiaonan bluntly stated the concerns of the rain country and pointed out the potential threat of this project to the rain country. However, Yamashita rolled his eyes and didn't care much about what the other party said. Are you kidding? Why are you pretending to be innocent? When your Akatsuki organization was collecting the tailed beasts, you didn't seem to care much about the opinions of other ninja villages. Didn't you offend all the major forces in the entire ninja world at that time? If any major country or ninja village was not convinced, couldn't you just let your leader use Super Shinra Tensei? Of course, considering that the Akatsuki organization is still in a dormant stage at this stage, and has not yet started to capture tailed beasts all over the world, it is understandable that the other party has such concerns. After all, if the Akatsuki organization showed its strength to defend any major ninja village in the ninja world from the beginning, then their later process of collecting tailed beasts might not be so smooth. Your country doesn't need to worry too much about this. At this time, Maki stepped forward and said, since both parties have decided to cooperate, the safety of your country is also a concern of our country. If any ninja village dares to invade your village, then our village will definitely not ignore it. The promise of a big country? Conan said sarcastically, if you think that a promise can dispel our concerns, then there is no need. After all, we in the Rain country have experienced such things. The promise of a big country is not much more reliable to us than the bragging of a drunk. You. Okay. Yamashita Kenji interrupted the argument between the two, looked directly into Conan's eyes, and said, I think your village seems to have made a mistake. It's not that we want to solve the threats that your village may face after the project starts, but you have to show us that you have the ability to solve this threat. When these words came out, everyone present was shocked on the spot, and for a moment they didn't know what to say. I think you all seem to have some misunderstandings. That is, this cooperation is not us begging you to agree to cooperate. On the contrary, this cooperation is our company giving your country an opportunity to develop. He looked at Maki and Conan at the same time, paused, and then continued, my words are for both of your countries at the same time. You seem to see that I submitted a plan to your country and subconsciously think that I'm making a request to your country, and your agreement to this plan is a charity to our company. If you all think so, then I can say that you are all wrong. Our company is the most powerful company in this ninja world. I can say bluntly that when we cooperate with any country in this ninja world, it is not us taking advantage, but that country has benefited from our company. You may think that I'm a little arrogant to say this, but our company has such strength. This can be proved by the fact that the financial income of the Kingdom of Hot Springs is now far higher than that of other countries. So, when you are bossing me around and making all kinds of demands, I hope you can examine yourself and see if you have the strength and position to make such demands. In other words, it is not that we have to do something to you now, but you have to prove to us that you have the ability to ensure the safety of this project. Yamashita Kenji's words were deafening. Although he was very arrogant, to a certain extent, what he said was true. There was no angle for everyone to refute him. With the achievements he made in the land of Hot Springs, he had a basis for saying such things. It was also for this reason that Conan, Maki, and the three little ones on the side all looked unhappy, but they had no way to refute. In the field, I'm afraid that only Kakuzu looked complacent. His boss should have done this a long time ago. Really, with such wealth, he was still submissive to these people. Isn't this just walking in the night with brocade clothes? He just wanted to slap them in the face with facts. Mr. Yamashita is really straightforward. His words have left us speechless. At this moment, a man walked out of the shadows and said lightly. This man was also wearing a black robe with red clouds, with orange hair and eyes that were like a whirlpool. Yamashita Kenji immediately recognized this man. Tendo Pain. Pain, why are you here? Conan asked in surprise. The routine affairs of the Rain village were usually handled by herself. Nagato would not intervene in such matters at ordinary times, but now the other party appeared, which was indeed beyond her expectations. Mr. Yamashita needs to confirm that our Rain village has the ability to protect this project, so I think I need to prove this to the other party. Tendo Pain said lightly, and at the same time, looked at Yamashita Kenji. Then, Mr. Yamashita, I wonder if it is convenient for you to come out and confirm my strength? The dignity of the Rain village was humiliated by the other party. Nagato was obviously not very satisfied with the previous words, so he came in person and wanted to try a few moves with Yamashita Kenji. Although Yamashita had enough confidence that with his current strength, even if he could not defeat Tendo Pain, he would definitely not lose to him. However, as the saying goes, a gentleman does not stand under a dangerous wall. He had no interest in fighting the opponent himself. So, he gestured to Kakuzu on the side and said, go ahead, Kakuzu, teach that young man a lesson. Kakuzu nodded, took a few steps confidently, came to the other side, and said, boy, you are lucky. Today I will let you see how the old predecessors fight. Chapter 7. Why is Kakuzu in terrifying pain? Tendo Pain looked at Kakuzu standing in front of him, and Yamashita Kenji not far away, and said lightly, "Is that so? Well, as a spectator, you should be able to see the gap between the two of us." Kakuzu narrowed his eyes, and said somewhat unhappily, "Boy, you." Before he finished speaking, he saw Tendo Pain in front of him with his hands raised in the air. The next moment, a strong suction force came directly over, causing Kakuzu, who was unprepared, to fly into the air and fly quickly in the direction of Pain. Puff. The sound of muscle being torn sounded, and a black stick appeared in the opponent's hand at some point, directly piercing Kakuzu's heart. The bright red blood flowed down the black stick, looking hideous and terrifying. How could this happen? This change shocked everyone in the Sand Village. They never thought that the god of Mr. Yamashita, who was quite powerful, was killed so easily by the opponent. What happened just now? Why did Mr. Kakuzu fly uncontrollably towards the opponent's ninja? What exactly is that power? I think, with this kind of strength, I should be able to become Mr. Yamashita's partner, right? Pain's voice was still so cold, as if everything that had just happened was nothing to him. Well, so you think you won? Yamashita said with a smile. Pain frowned when he heard this, and was about to continue to say something, but he felt that the corpse in his hand was different. Before he could react, a more severe pain came from his shoulder. It was Kakuzu who should have died, and he actually came back to life. And he also used the wind escape ninjutsu to cut off one of his arms? Exclamation mark. He hurriedly exerted force and threw the other person out, then stepped back several steps in succession, and then checked the injury of his arm. The arm was cut off by the wind escape. Although his Six Paths Pain puppet was not good at defense, it was able to cut off the arm of the Heavenly Path puppet in an instant, and the quality of the ninjutsu used by the other party was definitely not low. What surprised him even more was that the attack just now was obviously a sneak attack, and the opponent had no time to seal. In other words, the opponent used a no-seal ninjutsu to cut off his arm. Moreover, he did not hold back at all in the previous attack. He was sure that the black stick must have pierced the opponent's heart. But why didn't he die? Looking at Kakuzu, who was thrown away, he stood up from the ground, as if nothing had happened, pulled his robe aside, revealing the 5 hideous masks on his chest, and the mask on his chest had been pierced, revealing a hole. "You are really good at fighting. You actually killed one of my hearts right away," Kakuzu said. "Then, as compensation, use your heart to compensate." As he said that, the 3 masks on Kakuzu's body actually fell off directly, and the body composed of hideous tentacles swayed in the air, like a disgusting worm. 3 hideous monsters were peeled off from the opponent's body. Mystifying. He was not careful for a moment and his arm was cut off by the opponent. This was a very humiliating thing for Nagato, who claimed to be a god, so he used the same trick again. With a wave of his hand, he once again activated 10,000 Things Attraction to attract the opponent. No matter how strange the opponent's ability was, as long as the main body was killed, there should be no problem. You want the same move to work on me twice? How much do you look down on me? Once again feeling the irresistible force, Kakuzu once again took off into the air, but this time, he was prepared, and not as panicked as before. Bang, bang, bang. At this time, the 3 separated monsters sprayed fireballs, water balls and wind blades from their mouths, and attacked Pain's position together. These were 3 unprinted ninjutsu again, and their release speed was even faster than that of 10,000 Things Attraction. If he did not react, then the 3 ninjutsu would definitely fall on him at the same time. Helplessly, he had to interrupt the activation of the technique and dodge the 3 ninjutsu. Once again gaining control of his body, Kakuzu landed steadily on the ground, then stepped back a few steps. The monsters also dispersed directly and surrounded Pain. "It's just as I expected." Kakuzu looked as if it was true. "Although your ninjutsu seems unstoppable, it has a fatal shortcoming. That is, you cannot move significantly during the process of casting the ninjutsu. In this way, as long as someone attacks you and interrupts your ninjutsu while you are casting the ninjutsu, then your powerful ninjutsu will be directly useless. In a one-on-one situation, shadow clones, water clones and other clone techniques can be used, but if the ninja's level is not high, he may be hit before he can finish the hand seal. But fortunately, I'm not an ordinary ninja. Your ability is no longer effective to me. I say, Kit, your ability is indeed against the sky, but it is still far behind me. After all, I have fought with the god of ninja, Hashirama Senju. Kakuzu is worthy of being a legendary ninja. As soon as he came into contact with the opponent, he noticed the shortcomings of Cheyenne of all things, and formulated an effective counter strategy. This really proves the saying that the older people get, the more evil they become, and of course, the thicker their skin becomes. Is that so? Pin had not expected that the other party would be so sharp and notice the characteristics of his technique in an instant. It seemed that, if he wanted to deal with this ninja, simply using Pin's words would be a bit inadequate. Stop talking nonsense, and give me your heart, Kakuzu said, and attacked from 4 directions almost at the same time. 3 monsters spewed out ninjutsu of different attributes from their mouths, while quickly rushing towards Pin. Kakuzu's body also quickly turned into earth grey, although a large number of pure black tentacles gushed out from his arms and attacked Pin. Pin, who was at the center of the attack, did not panic at all. He stretched out his only remaining hand in front of him. It's useless. I have seen through your move. Don't even think about using that move to hurt me again, Kakuzu said. However, Pin opened his lips slightly and uttered a few words faintly. Shinelyo Tensisha. In an instant, a terrifying repulsive force came from Pin's body and spread rapidly to the surroundings at an incomprehensible speed. Everything that was affected by the repulsive force, whether it was steel or boulders, or the 3 monsters that had separated from Kakuzu, was turned into dust. In the blink of an eye, the building where everyone was located, from the top floor to several meters below, disappeared. When the dust settled, only a lonely Tendo Pain was left in the field. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 8: The Great Flood. Pin, you lost your composure. Pieces of paper appeared in the air, slowly gathered into a human figure, and finally turned into the previous Xiaonan. She looked at the mess on the ground, and said to Pin helplessly. Pin put his hand down and said lightly, the dignity of God cannot be desecrated. That guy must pay the price for his actions. But the plan, provided by the other party, is very good, which can bring huge income to our own country. You killed all of them at once, isn't it a bit? Xiaonan was still a little tempted by the plan, but now that Pin killed all those people, the plan would naturally be impossible to implement. Xiaonan, I think you must have misunderstood something, Pin said, and then looked in one direction. Whoosh. I saw that several people suddenly appeared in the originally empty field, including Yamashita, Kakuzu and all the people who had just disappeared in the Sand Village. Looking at their appearance, although they were shocked, they were unharmed. Of course, this should not include Kakuzu. The 3 hearts of this guy were all destroyed in the previous attack. With the one before, he only has 1 heart left now. He stood behind Yamashita with some vigilance, ready to run away at any time. Oh, really? It seems that Mr. Pin is not very friendly. Just now, he was going to kill us all, right? Yamashita said jokingly, and at the same time, his heart was full of alarm. The power of the Shinra Tensei just now really shocked him. Although it is not as powerful as the jutsu he performed in Konoha, it is much more terrifying than the effect of simply bouncing people away in the comics. No wonder this person dares to call himself a god. Although his expressiveness is not that strong in the comics. Now, even if there is only one Pin, he is an existence that ordinary cage level characters cannot compare to. If he hadn't seen that things were not going well, he would have used the Flying Thunder God Jutsu and took everyone away from this place. They would have been wiped out. Flying Thunder God technique? How do you know this ninjutsu? What's your relationship with Konoha Village? Pin didn't care about the other party's questioning, but directly told the other party the origin of the ninjutsu. Flying Thunder God technique, this powerful space-time ninjutsu that allowed the Fourth Hokage to dominate the ninja world, is well known in the ninja world, and the other party's knowledge of that ninjutsu is obviously inseparable from Konoha village. As for this matter, you don't need to worry about it. Yamashita patted the dust off his body and then said, from the battle just now, I have seen how powerful you are. I also believe that, even if you rely solely on your own strength, you can ensure that there will be no accidents in this project. So, there is no problem on my side, but I don't know if you have any questions? Pain looked at him deeply and then said, no problem. Our own village agrees to join this project plan. Perfect. Yamashita snapped his fingers and then said, then, you can discuss some of the details with them. If you have any questions, you can also ask me. Yamashita pointed at the people of Sand Village and then thought about leaving here directly. At this time, several people appeared in the field again. Judging from their dress and forehead protectors, they should all be ninjas from the Rain Village. These people looked at Yamashita and others with some vigilance, as if they were about to attack at any time. No problem, Sato, this is a misunderstanding. This scene really looked like a battle, and it was no wonder that the other party misunderstood. Xiaonan explained and dispelled the vigilance of those people. Those people breathed a sigh of relief, and then hurriedly said to Peen, sir, the holy river is flooding. What? Conan and Peen shouted in shock, and then without any hesitation, they disappeared in a flash, leaving the people of the Sand Village looking at each other in bewilderment. So, what should we do? Maki was a little at a loss. Seeing the great power of the man just now, all the pride in his heart from the great ninja village disappeared, so he asked Yamashita in a daze. Yamashita touched his chin and said, after all, we are partners. Let's go over and see if we can help. Then he looked at Kakuzu and said, why don't you leave first? You only have one heart left. You are really weak and dangerous in your current state. Feeling as if he was looked down upon by his boss, Kakuzu said indignantly, I say, you look down on me, don't you? Even if I only have one heart left, I'm much better than that man. He pointed at Maki and then said, then I'll wait for you at the hotel. Then he also flashed and disappeared. Well, how to say it, he is worthy of being an old guy who has lived from the warring states period to the present. He will not do anything that is a little dangerous. The land of rain is a very magical country. It rains all year round, and the time when the sun can be seen in a year is very short. Logically, such a huge amount of precipitation will inevitably make the water system in its territory abundant. However, the fact is not like this. There is only one huge river and a huge lake in the entire rain country. That lake is called the Holy Lake. And the river that almost surrounds the rain country is called the Holy River. This river rushes all year round. After rushing down into the river country, it begins to fork and becomes a stream, which almost covers the entire area of the river country like capillaries, and then all flows into the sea. Such abundant water also brings an inevitable natural disaster to the rain country, floods. In fact, although the rain country has abundant rainfall, because of the terrifying water storage capacity of the Holy Lake and the continuous delivery of rainfall to the river country by the Holy River, the rain country is not as frequently affected by floods as imagined. However, almost every few years, when the Holy Lake and the Holy River can no longer withstand the huge amount of rainfall, the rain country will once again face the flood that is like a natural disaster for them. Every time there was a flood in the land of rain, it was a disaster far beyond the imagination of ordinary people, because of the huge amount of rainfall. Farmland was flooded, houses were destroyed, and people were displaced. Even in less than a day, the flood could turn the land of rain into a swamp. This was also something that the rulers of the land of rain had to consider. Now, it was Pain who had to face this problem. Chapter 9 Gods and Good People. The heavy rain poured down on everyone, but no one said anything about the wetness on their bodies. Instead, they looked at the crumbling levee in front of them with sorrow in their hearts. This levee built along the river, after enduring countless days of rain and river erosion, was already full of cracks, and was about to break directly. And it is conceivable that once this levee is lost, the hundreds of miles around it will probably become a swamp. The ninjas extracted the last trace of chakra in their bodies and used earth escape to fill the cracks, but it was useless. The collapse of the levee was already a fait accompli, and it was only a matter of time. The people not far away had stopped their steps to evacuate, and they knelt on the ground, praying silently, hoping that the so-called gods could give this devastated land a little last blessing. God is coming. God is coming. At this moment, a shout was heard. Everyone looked in the direction of the sound and saw two figures flying quickly from the sky in the distance. They were Paintendo and Conan. What's the situation? As soon as she landed, Conan couldn't wait to ask. There is no way. The levee can no longer withstand the pressure of the river. No matter how many times it is repaired, the levee will collapse. At that time, said the responsible ninja. At the end of his speech, he couldn't help sobbing, and a feeling of powerlessness came over him. Don't cry, that won't solve any problems. Pain said, how is the evacuation going? The ninja wiped his eyes and then said, it's not going very smoothly. No one wants to leave their hometown, and is very resistant to migration. At this time, a commoner on the side came up, knelt down with a plop, and said to Pain, Lord God, please save our hometown. The peace in the rain country is hard won. We have just settled down, and don't want to be displaced again. Please save our homeland. The commoners behind him knelt down. They all used to worship the man in front of them as a god. Now that a natural disaster has come, only such a god can save them. Nagato looked at the people in front of him and remained silent for a long time. However, at this moment, a fierce water flow gushed out directly from the dam, and then, a flood like a mountain of water rushed out from the gap. The dam is destroyed. Earth escape, earth flow wall. A row of ninjas shouted in unison, and they simultaneously performed a ninjutsu, raising a huge wall from the ground to block the rushing flood. However, human power was futile in the face of such a natural disaster. It only blocked the flood for a moment before the earth wall was directly destroyed. The flood continued to attack in all directions. At this time, Pain quickly flew to the sky and faced the surging flood head-on. He raised one hand and uttered a few words loudly, Shinra Tensei. The next moment, the villagers of the rain country saw a scene they would never forget. A slightly thin figure floated in the air, standing alone against the natural disaster. The flood rolled up a huge wave of dozens of meters and rushed towards them. However, just a few meters in front of the man, the flood seemed to have stopped in time, and it seemed to have hit a transparent wall and could not move forward at all. What a spectacular scene this was. Even the most gorgeous language can't describe it. The flood was stopped by one person. However, although the situation seemed to have improved, Xiaonan did not dare to relax at all. He quickly commanded the ninjas who still had spare power to transfer the people here to a safe place. Unfortunately, due to the previous delay, a large number of people were stranded here. Even with the help of ninjas, there was no way to transfer everyone for a while. However, Pain in the Sky was not feeling well. It was not a wise choice to use his own power to fight against the great power between heaven and earth. However, because of the people behind him, he had to do so. The ultimate goal he wanted to pursue was to make the world peaceful, the people live and work in peace, and there would be no more killing between ninjas. Therefore, for him, the people behind him were all the existences he wanted to protect. For this, he would pay any price. However, because of the previous battle with Kakuzu, he lost an arm and consumed a lot of chakra. In addition, he was consuming chakra at a rapid rate all the time, so he could feel that he would not be able to hold on for much longer. Once he loosened his restraint on the flood, the people behind him would be immediately injured, which he absolutely did not want to see. What should he do? Just as he was anxious, he suddenly found that the people on the ground disappeared one by one. Not long after, the people who were still stranded in the original place disappeared. Flying Thunder God technique? Such an idea popped up in his mind, and at this moment, his chakra was exhausted, and the surging flood directly submerged it, and then attacked the city like an army. In a short while, it submerged this fairly good plain into a swamp. And on a hilltop a few miles away from here, there were thousands of civilians gathered here, who were the ones who disappeared before. And among these panicked people, one person was kneeling on the ground and vomiting. This person is none other than Kenji Yamashita. There is no other way. He just used a multiple shadow clone technique to create hundreds of clones, and use a Flying Thunder God technique dozens of times at the same time to transport all the people to a safe place. When the clones were released, the feeling of using the Flying Thunder God technique so many times before accumulated on him, making him feel like he had ridden a roller coaster hundreds of times. His head seemed to be in a mess, and he wanted to vomit his stomach. However, although he looked embarrassed now, this look was a different feeling in the eyes of the people in the sand village. What Yamashita did just now can be said to have saved thousands of lives. If he hadn't taken action, it can be imagined that it would be good for half of the people present now to survive. More importantly, these people have no relationship with Yamashita at all. He is willing to risk running out of chakra to save these people, who have nothing to do with him. His quality can really be imagined. Although ninjas always regard life as worthless, and killing as easy as drinking water, it must be said that no matter who they are, they all respect good people. Perhaps, only good people like Yamashita Kenji can be like this. Even if he has become the richest man in the ninja world, he is still willing to work hard to plan a project like the South to North Water Diversion project that can greatly change the people's livelihood of the two countries. Chapter 10 Yamashita Kenji's Ambition. A moment later, Xiaonan and the ninjas from the Hidden Rain village arrived late. These ninjas have a certain ability to protect themselves under such a natural disaster, so Yamashita did not move them before, which saved his own effort and avoided some unnecessary troubles. When Xiaonan saw the scene here, he knew that what had just happened was all the credit of Yamashita, so without saying anything, he bowed to the ground and said, "Mr. Yamashita, thank you very much for your contribution to the Rain Country. Thank you." With Xiaonan taking the lead, the ninjas also bowed to Yamashita one by one to express their gratitude. Their movements were so uniform that Yamashita thought that these people were going to show him their traditional art of daily life, the red bean paste fight. No, I just happened to meet you. We will be cooperative allies in the future. I have no reason to turn a blind eye to your difficulties, Yamashita said indifferently. This is completely different. At this time, Tendo Pain also flew over. Now his body is intact, and the hand that was cut off before has also recovered. He landed on the ground, looked at Yamashita Kenji deeply, and then bowed again. You not only helped us, but also saved the lives of thousands of citizens of my Rain Country. We will always remember this kindness in our hearts. Seeing that the other party was so serious, Yamashita didn't know what to say, so he accepted the other party's greeting, and then followed them, and returned to check the situation in the area affected by the flood. The originally flat plain farmland now has more than 1 meter of accumulated water. The flood submerged houses, fields, and food. Everything is gone, as if they had never appeared. The people who followed behind them, one by one, were like bereaved parents. Seeing their former homes become like this, they couldn't help crying. Yamashita hated to see such scenes the most. He couldn't help but ask, "What are you going to do in the future?" In the future? Pain looked at the ocean in front of him, as if he was answering Yamashita Kenji's question, and as if he was talking to himself. When the flood recedes, people will return to their homes again, reorganize the land, renovate farmland, control saline alkali land, and then wait for the next flood to come. This is the fate of the people of our Rain Country. And even though it is so hard for us to simply live, we are still coveted by major countries. It has become the battlefield of war between major countries, giving us the pain of war. This world is so sad. Pain's words made the people of the sand village speechless. Although only Maki had participated in the war among them, they had heard from the stories sung by the elders about the heroic deeds of their country's heroes in the Second Ninja World War, and how Lord Chiyo defeated Hanzo, who was known as a demigod. But they didn't expect that in the land of the Rain Country, they heard a completely different story. This made them reflect on whether the many wars before were really correct. War is like this. If you fall behind, you will be beaten. As a small country, you can only be slaughtered on the chopping board. Even a big country is often helpless. There is no right or wrong in war. Everyone is just stuck in the quagmire. Maki said. So, I have been looking for a way to eliminate war. Pain said. That kind of thing does not exist at all. As long as there are people, there will be war. Maki said firmly. Really? Pain did not comment. I didn't care about the argument between the two. Looking at the people with sad faces at the foot of the mountain, I really felt Guayuan's words. I sigh and cover my tears, mourning the hardships of people's lives. This was the case in his previous life. he often felt powerless. For the many tragedies in the world and the powerlessness of the people, God made most people have compassion for the world, but only gave a very small number of people the ability to change the world. After arriving in this world, although he always felt that there was a gap between him and this world, his compassion for life was no different. Unlike his previous life, he was a systematic person who had the ability to change this tragic situation. This might be why he chose the most difficult, but most beneficial South to North water diversion project as a task to achieve instead of many other huge projects. In his previous life, he had indeed seen that this project would benefit the present and future generations, and would benefit countless people, so when choosing the project, he chose this most difficult one without hesitation. He has never regretted it now. Now, seeing this devastated scene, he pondered for a moment, and finally couldn't help it. He turned back, and looked at the people with sad faces and said, "Everyone, please stop and listen to me." Everyone stopped unconsciously, and Maki in pain didn't argue anymore. Countless pairs of eyes looked at him. "I'm Kenji Yamashita, the owner of Yamashita Industrial Company. You may not have heard of this company, but I can tell you that our company is the most powerful company in the ninja world. Not long ago, our company has signed a cooperation contract with your country. We will work together to build a huge water diversion project to guide the abundant water resources of the rain country to the wind country. This will not only solve the water shortage problem in the wind country, but also greatly increase the fiscal revenue of the rain country. Originally, I thought that this project would be beneficial to both countries, but seeing such a scene today, I was touched. I think that this project should not simply increase the fiscal revenue of the rain country. That will not help at all with the real difficulties that everyone is facing. If we want to make fundamental changes in everyone's lives, we must control water. Therefore, I, Kenji Yamashita, promise you here, in the presence of many fellow villagers, that this project is by no means just a water diversion project. Our company will conduct on-site inspections, sort out the water system of our rain country, and completely solve the problem of flooding in our rain country, so that our holy rivers and holy lakes can truly become your gentle mother. This is my oath. I hope you can all witness it together. Maybe now it seems like a lie, but I believe that it won't be long before you will see our determination to control water. At the same time, I now announce that our company will be fully responsible for everyone's post-disaster resettlement work out of humanitarianism. At least before everyone really settles down, our company will cover all your problems. I also hope that everyone can put aside all concerns and build a new home. Chapter 11 Cooperation finalized. Kenji Yamashita's voice echoed in the wilderness, and it was repeated in everyone's heart. Those who were saved by him, looking at this young and excessive man in front of them, didn't know how to react to his words for a moment. Accuse him of being shameless, and making fun of them, the victims of the disaster? But he had just saved them not long ago. Believe him. But what he just said was a bit too outrageous and hard to believe. It was still Pain who looked at Yamashita deeply, and saw the determination in his eyes. Then he looked at his people and said, "Mr. Yamashita will not lie. If he says he can do something like that, he can definitely do it." Seeing their god say such words, everyone believed Yamashita's words, and their eyes were filled with tears. They looked at Yamashita with less doubt, but looked at Kenji Yamashita as if he were a saint. If the other party can really do what he said, then isn't he a saint? Kenji Yamashita didn't care about the gratitude of the people. He didn't say those words to gain their gratitude. All the decisions he made were based on those 4 words, clear thoughts. The resettlement of the victims was temporarily handed over to the ninjas of the Rain Village. Kenji Yamashita, Pain, and the people of the Sand Village came to a conference hall to discuss the next cooperation. Kakuzu was very opposed to Yamashita's decision. Although being responsible for the post-disaster reconstruction of the Rain Village was not a big deal for their company, and the financial expenditure required was a drop in the bucket for their company, Kakuzu, a senior stingy person in the ninja world, was unwilling to spend even a penny. Unfortunately, Yamashita had already decided on this matter, and it could not be changed, so he could only sigh and feel that it was a very wrong decision for him not to go with Yamashita this time. At the same time, he looked at Pain with hostility. Pain didn't pay much attention to Kakuzu, but said to Yamashita, "Mr. Yamashita, are all the things you said before true? A gentleman's word is as good as his bond. I, Yamashita Kenji, am a well-known figure in the ninja world. Once I say something, I will definitely build this rain country better." Yamashita Kenji patted his chest and said. Pain and Conan looked at each other, and then they bowed deeply to Yamashita and said, "On behalf of the people of the rain country, I thank you for your generosity and righteousness." Pain, or Nagato, grew up in the rain country since he was a child, and he has a deep affection for this land. He founded the Akatsuki organization before, hoping that there would be no more wars on this land. However, in fact, they all knew that, even if there was no more war in the rain country, given the geographical environment of the rain country, their citizens would not be far away from pain. They would also have to face the natural disasters that, even if they had the samurai, they could not directly resist. The land of rain is like a cursed land, and the people living on this land will suffer forever. But now, things seem to have taken a turn for the better. The changes in the land of hot springs are actually witnessed by the entire ninja world. It is an achievement that has never been seen in the ninja world for thousands of years. To be able to build such a small country into a beacon of ninja world civilization and a center of commerce within a few years. And the person who has accomplished this great achievement has threatened to change the bad situation of the land of rain. Such words made him have to believe. Therefore, this thank you is for the Dawn people of the land of rain, and for the ideal that was once out of reach in Nagato's heart. Okay, Mr. Pain, this matter is a matter of benefit to both parties. The land of rain has become more prosperous. We will have more possibilities for cooperation in doing business in the future, so you don't have to do this, Yamashita said, and at the same time he was secretly happy. It was also a very fulfilling thing for him to be able to directly convince this temporary top master of the ninja world. Then, let's discuss the specific details of this cooperation, so as to advance the project as soon as possible, Yamashita said, and the people in the field began to negotiate. The negotiation went surprisingly smoothly. Both parties seemed to cooperate with Yamashita very much. As long as it was the conditions he proposed, both parties basically agreed, after thinking about it, without too much bargaining. This was somewhat beyond Yamashita's expectations, but in fact, think about it, now Yamashita's favorability in both the rain country and the wind country has almost been maximumed out. In their eyes, Yamashita is no different from a saint. As long as the conditions proposed by the saint are not excessive, what's the problem with agreeing to them? What's more, Yamashita's conditions are also surprisingly lenient. So, in this harmonious atmosphere, the cooperation between the two sides has been finalized. Next, when Yamashita completes the specific construction plan and submits it to the rain country and the wind country, this most grand and greatest project in history can also begin. After finishing the work here, Yamashita followed the people of the wind country, left the rain country, and walked towards the wind country. Standing on a high tower, Pain looked down at the people going away. Conan appeared behind him and asked, "Don't we need to capture the one-tailed beast?" Pain shook his head and said, "The ninja world is generally peaceful now. The plan to capture the tailed beast is not very important. On the contrary, allowing the rain country to avoid the invasion of floods is the top priority. So, don't alarm the enemy for the time being." Conan was silent for a moment, and continued to ask, "So, after that person proposed such a plan, do we really have to implement that plan?" Pain said firmly, "That person has strengthened my determination to complete that plan. I don't know if he deliberately ignored it, or really didn't think about it. The kind of spectacular project he wanted to build must be completed in a peaceful environment. Once a large-scale war breaks out in the outside world again, his project is likely to be destroyed. Therefore, there must be a force that is higher than all ninja villages to suppress those big countries that cannot curb their ambitions and prevent them from acting rashly. In this way, great projects like that can be truly completed, and the people of the ninja world can live a good life." Conan, gather the rest of the Akatsuki members. The plan to collect the tailed beasts needs to be changed a little bit. Yes. After answering, Conan left directly. Pain looked at the mountain that was gradually receding, and said to himself, "Can you really complete the grand blueprint you described?" If what you said is true, then even Hashirama Senju and Uchiha Madara, who ended the Warring States period, will pale in comparison to your brilliance. I hope you can succeed. Chapter 12. Arrange the Akatsuki organization clearly. After everyone left the Land of Rain, Yamashita Kenji did not follow the people of Sand Village back to the Land of Wind, but changed direction and walked towards the Land of Hot Springs. Of course, they said they were walking, but in fact, they did not travel for long. Along the way, there were the flying thunder god marks of Yamashita Kenji. He almost crossed or passed through and arrived in the Land of Hot Springs in one day. As soon as he arrived in the Land of Hot Springs, a modern atmosphere came over. This place was no longer an endless wilderness, but tall buildings, asphalt roads extending in all directions, and the city planning was well organized, as if it had the feeling of a third or fourth tier city in his previous life. This was the result of Yamashita Kenji's work in the Land of Hot Springs, and why even if he took out such a plan, that was a bit like a fairy tale, those people were still willing to believe him. In fact, the changes in the Land of Hot Springs made them have to believe it. Yamashita and Kakuzu did not stay on the street, but flashed again, and returned to the headquarters building of Yamashita Industrial Company, located in the capital of the Land of Hot Springs. As soon as he returned to the building, the staff inside surrounded him, and reported all the recent developments of the company to Yamashita. President Yamashita, the research institute has developed a new type of cement, which has more advantages than the previous model. If it is launched on the market, it will definitely surpass all competing products in this field. President Yamashita, based on your previous suggestions, Mr. Honda has successfully studied the role of electromagnetic waves in communication. He also creatively invented a machine that can use electromagnetic waves as a medium to allow two people several miles apart to talk directly, completely solving the problem of underdeveloped information in our ninja world. If this idea is established, then the way of ninjas transmitting information will become history. President Yamashita, the Fire Country has once again made a trade request, hoping to import some goods from our country, and hopes that our company can cooperate with their country to be responsible for their country's infrastructure work. Obviously, the company's development is booming. He has been away for only a few days, and the backlog of some affairs has already piled up like a mountain. This is because he only handles some key matters. If he does everything himself, I believe he will be exhausted to death in a few days. I think it's time to find some people who can help me. There are many talents in the ninja world. Although most people become ninjas, their ninja skills cannot bury their talents in other fields. Just like Kakuzu, this guy's financial ability is definitely the best in the ninja world. Since I handed over the financial power of the company to him, related matters have never bothered me again, and the company's finances are also very open and transparent. Of course, all this has changed since Kakuzu dug out the hearts of the accountants who attempted to embezzle the company's assets one by one and made them into masks. Speaking of talents, Yamashita couldn't help but think of the Akatsuki organization. Let's not talk about Kakuzu. Sasori is the chosen worker that I have set my eyes on from the beginning. Although Uchiha Itachi has not shown any talents other than ninja talents in the original work, as the young patriarch of the Uchiha clan, I think his management ability is also very strong. Deidara, although a problem child, is very good at playing with explosive clay. Now their company is going to complete a project as big as the South to North Water Diversion Project, which requires a lot of explosives and blasting work. Isn't this guy a ready-made leader of the blasting team? And he is also a talent who can carry out fixed point blasting and precise blasting. Orochimaru, the top research talent in the ninja world, a versatile talent. Now the demonstration work of their project has not been fully completed, and there are still many problems to be solved. If Orochimaru participates in this project, it will obviously greatly promote the completion of this project. Even if it doesn't work, he can summon the second generation of Hokage to assist in the research. Kasame, a genius ninja of water escape, can create water in an environment without water. If he participates in this project, then the work of controlling and diverting water will no longer be a big problem. Fiden, a senior cult member and the owner of an immortal body. Speaking of it, can the party and government work of the engineering team be? No, absolutely not. As expected, Fiden, You are really useless, except that you can't die. When the time comes, I will send you directly to Orochimaru as an experimental material. Who knows what he can do with it? Unknowingly, Yamashita has arranged all the people in the Akatsuki organization clearly. I wonder what Nagato will think when he knows that someone wants to dig into his organization. Yamashita returned to his office and quickly reviewed the documents. Although there are many things, they are all directional issues. They are not difficult in themselves. They just require him, the leader of the company, to make decisions. So he finished reviewing this thick pile of documents in a short while. Overall, their company is stable and improving, and the project is slowly spreading to the surrounding areas of the Kingdom of Soup. In particular, the wealthy Kingdom of Fire is eager to cooperate with their company to build infrastructure. In terms of technology, there have been outstanding achievements. Not only have many new materials been developed, but some traditional materials have also been given new vitality with the blessing of new processes. Although there are not many technological products, the laboratory already has the prototype of a mobile phone. I believe that in a short time, when this technology is formed, their company will become the leading enterprise in the ninja world's communication technology, and he will also receive a large number of orders. In the end, base stations can be built all over the world, which is another big project. Looking at his thriving company, a sense of accomplishment arises spontaneously. After all, this company was founded by himself, and it is all condensed with his own blood. At this time, his office door was knocked, and a person walked in, saying with a somewhat abnormal face, "Mr. Yamashita, the daimyo invites you to the daimyo mansion for tea." Yamashita was stunned, then smiled meaningfully and said, "This person really cares about me. I just returned, and he wants to see me? This is really interesting." After thinking about it, he changed into a slightly more formal clothes, adjusted his appearance, and changed from a rough man who didn't care about details to a well-educated and elegant young man. Then he left the company and went to the daimyo mansion. Chapter 13, Regicide. Not long after, Yamashita Kenji arrived in front of a mansion. This mansion is very magnificent, decorated with carved beams and painted buildings, and very luxurious. At first glance, it is the kind of scene that only rich people can live in. This is a daimyo's mansion in the country of soup. In fact, just a few years ago, this daimyo's mansion was not so luxurious. Later, Yamashita's business was getting better and better, so the daimyo's mansion was expanded again and again, and this magnificent building was built. To put it bluntly, in the entire ninja world, this daimyo's mansion is the most magnificent and luxurious building. There were people waiting outside the door for a long time. Those people politely welcomed Yamashita in, and took him to a very typical Japanese tatami room. Inside, a fat middle-aged man with big ears was waiting for him. This person is a daimyo of the country of soup. Haha, brother Yamashita. You are finally here. I have been waiting for you for a long time. The daimyo of Hot Spring Country stood up with a big laugh, and warmly pulled Yamashita in, asked him to sit opposite him, then sat down again, and said to Yamashita, "Come, let's eat first. These ingredients are all very precious. The sand apples of the wind country and the sea fish of the water country are all delicacies of the ninja world." Looking at the man in front of him who seemed very open-minded, Yamashita couldn't help but smile. He looked at him with interest and said, "Damien, actually, I have always wanted to ask you a question." The daimyo was stunned, then waved his hand and said, "Mr. Yamashita, you are too polite. Given our relationship, just ask any questions you have. In that case, I'll ask." Yamashita paused, then continued, "Why do you have to get rid of me as soon as possible?" Hearing this, the daimyo's face changed, and he was about to say something, but was interrupted by Yamashita. He continued, "I claim to have done my duty to you. Although the company's development can have long been beyond the territory of the Kingdom of Hot Springs, in order to repay your kindness, I also gave you half of the company's shares, so that you can regularly share a lot of profits from the company. I also helped you complete the infrastructure of the entire Kingdom of Hot Springs at cost price, and did a lot of charity projects. Now, whether it is your own assets or the development of the Kingdom of Hot Springs, you should be considered the top in the ninja world, right? As a daimyo of a small country, you can almost stand at the same height as the daimyo of the 5 major countries, and even far exceed them in terms of assets. To be frank, these are all given to you by me. What are you dissatisfied with, so that you must kill me? You gave it to me, I deserve it. Seeing the other party's solemn promise, the daimyo of Unakuni obviously knew that the matter was exposed, so he stopped pretending and said with a distorted face, "You, Kenji Yamashita, are just a small beggar in Unakuni. If I hadn't pulled you out of the pile of beggars, you would have died somewhere. I have absolutely been very kind to you. But what about you? How do you repay me? You only gave me half of the shares of your company, and you don't allow me to interfere in the control of the company. Is this your way of repaying your benefactor? What's yours is mine. Your company, your money, and your status should all be mine." The daimyo of Unakuni was flushed all over, and he spit it everywhere as he denounced Kenji Yamashita for his ingratitude. Yamashita smiled, looked at the somewhat crazy daimyo of the land of hot springs with some contempt, and said, "So that's what you think? Then indeed, the conflict between the two of us should not be reconcilable. So, what are you going to do? Use this table of food to poison me to death? Poison? No, 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 this table of delicacies is to send you off." As he said, the daimyo picked up a piece of fish and tasted it carefully, as if he was really enjoying the deliciousness of the fish. Then, he clapped his hands leisurely, and the next moment, the sliding door was violently broken, and a dozen strong men rushed into the room and surrounded Yamashita Kenji. "So, is this your plan? Use some rabble and think you can kill me?" Yamashita Kenji said with a smile. He didn't expect the other party to be so naive and try to use these guys who are not even ninjas to kill him. "It's your expression that seems to be under control that makes me disgusted," said the daimyo. "I have already studied you thoroughly. When you were just starting out, you borrowed my name so that those evil spirits in the country didn't dare to act rashly against you. And when your business grew bigger, I found a powerful ninja as a bodyguard from somewhere who was able to ensure your safety along the way. In other words, from the beginning to the end, you have always been borrowing the power of others, and you yourself have no strength at all. Now that your bodyguards are not here, the people here are more than enough to deal with you." Seeing that the other party was talking eloquently and looked confident of winning, Yamashita smiled, picked up a chopstick on the table, and said, "Really, do you think so?" Before he finished speaking, Yamashita seemed to shake his body and then returned to normal, putting the chopsticks in his hand on the table. The daimyo raised his eyebrows and said, "You don't need to be mysterious here. You are definitely in trouble today." Before he finished speaking, the people surrounding the mountain fell down one by one. Without exception, there was a deep hole between their eyebrows, and a mixture of red and white was overflowing. The diameter of the hole was just the same size as a chopstick. The daimyo was horrified and trembled with fear. He leaned back as hard as he could, looking at the mountain, as if he was looking at a monster. "Hey, what's going on? Why are they like this? What did you do to them?" Yamashita shook his head, stood up slowly, walked to the daimyo, and said slowly, "You are always so naive, thinking that since I have never used my power, I have never had power. No, no, you can't kill me. You even use some ordinary people who are not ninjas to take me down. I'm the daimyo of this country, the most honorable person in the world. If you kill me, the entire ninja world, those big countries, will not let you go. You will plunge this country into an eternal war. In addition, I need to add that, in fact, when I met you, I already had the power to protect myself. To be more precise, since I came to this world, most people in this ninja world cannot kill me. Because the Flying Thunder God technique is open from the novice gift package. Click. Chapter 14 3 Problems. The daimyo of the land of hot springs had his hands hanging down helplessly, his neck twisted unnaturally, and he was obviously dead. Although he had killed his own monarch, Yamashita seemed very calm. He just sat quietly in front of the table and began to taste the food on the table. Well, although the ingredients were top-notch, the cooking methods were too rough, and it was a bit of a waste of food. It seems that the implementation of this Ninja World Food Development Plan is really urgent. After a while, a man suddenly appeared in the room. It was Kakuzu. He looked at the scene in the room and said to Yamashita with some amusement, "So, this idiot attacked you?" Yamashita nodded and said, "I didn't expect that this guy would think that a few ordinary people could subdue me. These so-called upper class people are like this. They haven't used their brains for too long, and they think everything is simple. But those ninja villages indulge them, so they have developed such a character." Kakuzu said with disdain. "Help to deal with it. Try not to let other people know about what happened here." Yamashita arranged. Kakuzu raised his eyebrows. "What, you don't plan to ascend to the position of daimyo directly?" Yamashita shook his head. "It's not that simple. Although the countries in this ninja world are often conquered, for those high-level officials, if someone really touches their bottom line, then they will definitely attack together. They may not care about the lives of their subordinates, but they definitely cherish their own lives. Since the establishment of the one village, one country system, I have only heard of the cage of a certain village being killed, but I have never heard of the daimyo of a country being killed. If we break this unspoken rule, I think within 2 days, the ninja coalition will directly besiege Ryu Kingdom." Hearing this, Kakuzu nodded and said, "This is indeed something those bastards can do. So, we hide this news for the time being, but this is not a long-term solution." "No hurry," Yamashita said. "Let's arrange a puppet to replace the daimyo for the time being. When the time is right, I will arrange for him to abdicate and let me take over." Kakuzu nodded, then smiled. "It's a good thing that this guy died. No one will hinder our company. I think the company's development should be smoother. It should be so." Yamashita Kenji said, then stood up and said, "Then, the things here are handed over to you first. I'm going to the research institute to take a look." As he said that, Yamashita performed the flying thunder god technique and disappeared in an instant. "Hey, this flying thunder god technique is really convenient." Kakuzu sighed and then began to deal with the scene. Yamashita appeared directly in the Yamashita Science Research Institute. This research institute is located on the edge of the city and covers a very large area. There are dozens of different departments in it, each with its own research projects. Although it swallows up a huge amount of funds every year, it also produces many cross-century products, which increase the company's foundation and generate profits. Yamashita did not hesitate and went directly to a department. On the gate were written the words, "South to North Water Diversion Project Department." When he walked into the gate, he saw some researchers arguing about something. When they saw Yamashita coming in, everyone suddenly quieted down. The person in charge hurried over and said, "President Yamashita, you are here." Yamashita nodded and said, "How is the project going?" "Not very smoothly," the man said. "We still have many problems to solve. Theoretically, there are still many difficulties." "Really? If we want to solve all of them, how long will it take?" Yamashita asked. The man touched his chin and estimated, "I think it will take about 3 years, right?" 3 years. "No, it's too long." Yamashita said, "Can we start the project first, and then tackle the problems while we are at it? We've considered this plan before." The man took out a plan from somewhere and handed it to Yamashita, then said, "This plan should be feasible, but before the project starts, we need to solve 3 technical problems. The first is the problem of gravity flow throughout the entire process. If we want the rainwater from the rain country to flow continuously to the wind country, it is obviously unrealistic to use manpower to divert water. We need to rely on the power of nature, and water in nature only flows from high to low. This means that the project needs to accurately control the elevation of the channel. In this regard, our institute lacks talent in this area." The second is the problem of dealing with complex geological conditions. This construction will go through many complex geological environments, and different geology naturally has different construction standards. We must have a specific plan before construction, otherwise, we will definitely encounter problems during the construction process, and serious problems may directly stop the project. The third is the research of materials. So far, we don't have a construction material that can meet all the conditions for our engineering construction. If we rashly use inferior materials for construction, the quality of the project will be difficult to guarantee. These 3 points are the most urgent problems that need to be solved now. In comparison, the water diversion and flood control problems in the rain country and the water storage problems in the wind country are relatively easy to solve and can be postponed a little. After listening to the other party's report, Yamashita Kenji also roughly glanced at the plan, nodded and said, "I understand. These are mainly some engineering and technical problems. If you are asked to solve them all, it may take a year or so, which is contrary to my original intention of starting construction as soon as possible." He frowned and pondered, thinking about whether he could find some relevant talents in the ninja world to tackle the difficult problems together. However, after thinking about it, he could only think of those few people: Orochimaru, Senjuta Biruma, and Yakushika Buto. If there is anyone who can help him, it may be these three people. And these three people can actually be gathered by finding one person: Orochimaru. Yamashita Kenji touched his chin. Although most of Orochimaru's energy was focused on biology, he was definitely a genius in other aspects. If he was brought into his team, it would definitely greatly speed up their research progress. But, on the other hand, why would Orochimaru agree to his request and join his research team? What advantages did his company have? Yamashita Kenji couldn't help but laugh. Yes, what advantages did he have? At that time, he had money. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 15, Resurrection of the Perpetual Motion Machine. As we all know, scientific research is very expensive. As one of the three ninjas and the most powerful scientist in the ninja world, Orochimaru, after defecting, also needs to rely on the country of Fields and trade with the daimyo of the country of Fields to obtain research funds. The national strength of the country of Fields is very weak, so it is conceivable that Orochimaru's research funds must not be sufficient. And it happens that funds are exactly what they have the most in the country of Soup. If he is tempted with benefits, the other party may not necessarily agree to his request. However, having said that, his current strength is limited, and rashly contacting Orochimaru may bring danger to himself. After all, Orochimaru is generally a reckless villain. Although he was inexplicably whitewashed later, his mind is still difficult to guess. This matter still needs to be considered more. Of course, in addition to Orochimaru, there is actually another person in his research institute who is qualified for this job. Yamashita thought about it, and then temporarily put the matter aside, left this department, and came to another department, Human Prosthetic Development Department. There was only one researcher in this department, a genius scientist that Yamashita had met when he was traveling in the ninja world before. He came to his research institute because of his enthusiastic invitation. The whole department was very dark, with many jars filled with liquid on both sides. Inside were various human organs, eyeballs, internal organs, brains, etc., just quietly suspended in the jars, which was very scary. And among the jars, a middle-aged man in a white lab coat was shuttling among them. This was the great scientist he invited, Sanzu Amado. He didn't remember that there was such a person in the original work, but the various machines he created did deeply shock Yamashita Kenji, and also let him see the most cutting-edge technology in the ninja world for the first time in a real sense. It was a great artifact with development potential that was not inferior to his previous life. It is precisely because of this that Yamashita invited this person to his research institute and gave him a large amount of funds to complete the research project he wanted. This person's daughter died of a strange disease. Heartbroken, he decided to use what he learned to revive his child. Therefore, in this institute, his research direction is human cloning, and he will also study human biological prosthetic technology to help people with limb disabilities regain a complete body. It's a very cliched story. Yamashita has heard of many similar routines, but if it is put into reality, it can't help but make people feel pity. However, resurrecting the dead is not a fantasy in such a world. After that, the strong men who crawled out of the graves one by one undoubtedly proved that resurrecting the dead is feasible. Even Uchiha Madara has made a resurrection template for everyone. First, you must use the impure world reincarnation. to summon the dead from the Pure Land and obtain a limb at the same time. Then, using the outer path reincarnation technique of the Rinnegan, at the cost of one person's life, the deceased who was resurrected by the impure world reincarnation can be directly resurrected. Of course, if the body of the deceased is well preserved, the first step can be skipped, and the Rinnegan technique can be used to resurrect it directly. The interesting thing about this resurrection formula is that the outer path reincarnation technique is not an ninjutsu that can only resurrect one person. After being bullied by the prince, Nagato used a ninjutsu to directly resurrect all the dead people in Konoha. It is conservatively estimated that there are thousands of people. In this case, this resurrection formula has a bug. Imagine if Nagato, Uchiha and Orochimaru got together and wanted to resurrect the dead. What would happen? First, Orochimaru summoned 1,000 people and Uchiha through the impure world reincarnation, and Nagato used the outer path reincarnation technique to resurrect all of them. Then, Uchiha took off Nagato's Samsara and put it on his own eyes. Then Orochimaru summoned 1,000 people and Nagato, and then Uchiha performed the outer path reincarnation natural technique to resurrect everyone, and so on. Well, the resurrection perpetual motion machine has been achieved. If these guys are willing, in a few days, there should be few souls in the Pure Land. By then, the reason for the war is that everyone cannot understand each other, and there is a blood feud between the major countries. It's all bullshit. Let's go home and live happily together. Of course, these are all Yamashita's imaginations. Not to mention whether this method can work. Just these three people are not willing to make perpetual motion machine parts. Mr. Amado, how is the research going? Yamashita said politely. Amado raised his head at this time and saw Yamashita coming down. He said with some surprise, Mr. Yamashita, you are back. My research is very successful, and the prosthetic research project has made a breakthrough. It is expected that it will not be long before the relevant experimental results can be put into the human experiment stage. Okay, that's great. Yamashita said happily. Your research will definitely benefit all disabled people in the ninja world. By then, I believe those people will be very grateful to you. Amado nodded and said, it would be my honor if I could make some contributions to others before resurrecting my child. By the way, Mr. Yamashita, is there anything you need to do to come to me this time? There are indeed some things that need to trouble you. Yamashita said, the South to North Water Diversion Project team next door has encountered difficulties, and some of them can't go on. So I thought, I hope you can go over to help overcome difficulties and solve those problems. Hearing this, Amado nodded and agreed and said, no problem, if I can help. Thank you very much. Kenji Yamashita still respects such technical talents and will not force them to do something directly. After all, these people are the precious wealth of his company. After saying goodbye to Amado, Yamashita wandered around the research institute for a while, and after roughly grasping the trends of several major projects, he returned to his company. At this time, Kakuzu had already handled the affairs of the Daimyo mansion. He used illusion to control everyone in the Daimyo mansion, making them believe that the puppet he arranged was the Daimyo himself. However, this kind of thing obviously cannot last long. If you want to solve this problem thoroughly, Yamashita's promotion is inevitable. Fortunately, Yamashita has basically controlled the country in reality. There should be no problem with his promotion within the country. What he needs to pay attention to is actually the external pressure. It seems that he has to visit those big countries one by one. Chapter 16. Sarutobi Hiruzen's decision. 1 month later, Yamashita Kenji walked out of the Fire Country Daimyo's mansion and let out a long sigh of relief. In the past month, he has been wandering around the upper classes of various countries, not only giving away many gifts, but also negotiating a lot of cooperation. Once the interests of two groups are related, many bottom lines that seemed untouchable before can be touched. From the tone he has tested, the upper classes of these major countries do not seem to have too much resistance to his promotion. In this way, when he returns later, he should be able to try to take the position. He is not so eager for power, but if he can become the pinnacle of power in the land of hot water, many things will be easier to do under the national system. Of course, He can also choose not to get the recognition of various countries and directly unilaterally declare himself the leader of the land of hot water, just like Nagato did in the land of rain. However, if he really has so much, then he can't enter the upper circle of the ninja world. His system is destined to require him to cooperate with various countries. Maintaining good relationships with everyone is at least very important for him to complete his mission. Fortunately, now that he has been recognized by the great powers, he can avoid a lot of trouble. At this time, the envoy of the far country Daimyo found him and handed him an invitation letter. Invitation letter for the Chunin exam of Konoha village? Looking at the invitation letter in his hand, Yamashita Kenji was a little surprised. So, the time has come to this time. This Chunin exam is exactly the one that Naruto and his friends participated in as described in the comics. That is to say, his timeline has officially entered the comic timeline, and in the next few years, the ninja world will undergo earth-shaking changes. The Konoha collapse plan, Sasuke's defection, the capture of the tailed beast by the Akatsuki organization, the convening of the 5-Kage conference, and even the Fourth Ninja World War. These events, one after another, have completely changed the pattern of the ninja world. At the same time, the previous generation of ninjas have hidden behind the scenes, and the new generation of ninjas have stood in the center of the stage. Of course, as the ninja world undergoes drastic changes, the threats from the outside world are getting closer and closer. It seems that the project is going to be accelerated. With the emergence of monsters and demons, his own strength is becoming less and less sufficient. However, I don't know what will happen in this Chunin exam. After all, because of my participation, the Fourth Kazekage Rasa should still be dealing with the South to North water diversion project, and he should not have the time to participate in Orochimaru's Konoha collapse plan. In this way, Rasa can be spared, and some of the plots in the future may be different. I just don't know to what extent the plot will change, and whether the third Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen will die because of this. This will directly affect the future direction of the ninja world, and will also have a certain impact on some of my future plans. Thinking of the invitation from Konoha village to me before, it seems that this trip to Konoha is a must. So he talked to the staff of his company, and followed Kakuzu to the direction of Konoha village. Kakuzu, have you been to Konoha village? On the way, Yamashita asked curiously, and he was also very curious about the center of the comics. That's not the case. Kakuzu was calculating the company's accounts tirelessly, and the abacus in his hand was clattering. At the same time, he responded, Konoha village is full of talents. The Kage of their village is also a very powerful ninja, who is known as a ninja hero. Although that guy seems to be indecisive now, from some of his secret methods, he is also an extremely dangerous person. Therefore, although there are many people with high bounties in Konoha village, I decided that it is not worth taking risks for those bonuses. After listening to Kakuzu's words, Yamashita Kenji was a little surprised. He didn't expect that the other party would have such a high evaluation of the third Hokage. Obviously, from the comics, the strength of that old guy is obviously exaggerated. Moreover, why do I always feel that Kakuzu has put the things that the root organization has done on the third Hokage? It seems that he still needs to judge what the third Hokage is like. In this way, the two came to Konoha village without talking. This is a village that covers a large area. Although it is called a village, there are many high-rise villas in it, which looks like a large town. The people guarding the gate of Konoha village are Gangziti and Izumo Kamatsuki. These two have been guarding the gate of Konoha village since the Chunin exams until the beginning of Boruto. They are the well-deserved gate shadow of the village. Although we don't know how strong they are, under the diligence of the two, Orochimaru has entered Konoha village, Hashiga Kikisame and Uchiha Itachi have entered Konoha village, and Nagato has entered Konoha village, which can be said to be a remarkable achievement. Because of the invitation letter, the two entered the village smoothly, and were led by the ninjas directly to the Hokage building, and saw the third Hokage. This old man looks very kind and benevolent, but because of the memory of his previous life, he has seen a lot of speculation about this person in the forum, so Yamashita really can't have any good feelings for this old man. Fortunately, he was only here to discuss business, and his likes and dislikes for the other party did not affect the business. In fact, it was precisely because of this vigilance that the cooperation could go on more smoothly. The two sides negotiated for more than an hour and roughly determined the direction of cooperation. The other party hoped to use the power of Yamashita Company to thoroughly renovate and expand Konoha village, and the effect would at least be no worse than that of the Kingdom of Soup. This matter was a big project even for the powerful Yamashita Company, but big projects often meant big returns. The other party not only agreed to pay the full amount of the cost of rebuilding the village, but also agreed to allow the other party to develop real estate projects within the scope of Konoha village if the cooperation was reached. For such loose cooperation conditions, Yamashita Kenji naturally had no reason not to agree. At the same time, he also realized that the third Hokage, who was always indecisive in his impression, was still very decisive in some aspects. This construction cost was a huge expense even for Konoha village. He was determined to promote this matter, which showed this guy's desire to revitalize Konoha village. After all, the development of the Kingdom of Hot Water is already a shining example, and that is a great miracle that happened right before the eyes of the Kingdom of Fire. For Konoha village, this is definitely a great opportunity, an opportunity to make Konoha great again. It is precisely because of this that Sarutobi Hiruzen is so decisive. As for how terrible the infamy he will have to accept as the Hokage if the plan fails, I think he has thought it through and is willing to bear it. After all, this guy is still the Hokage who is willing to give up his life for the village. Chapter 17 Pig, Deer, and Butterfly. After coming out of the Hokage building, the two declined Sarutobi Hiruzen's arrangement and planned to walk around the Konoha village. Let me tell you, Kakuzu, although I have never been to Konoha village, I'm not bad at all when it comes to understanding this village. Yamashita Kenji said to Kakuzu as if joking. With the memory of the previous life, Yamashita is fully confident that he may be more familiar with Konoha than the current Hokage. Really? What's the point? Obviously, as the financial manager of Yamashita Industrial Company, Kakuzu didn't care much about this kind of thing. Konoha village was just a partner of his, nothing more. You are really only interested in money. Yamashita said helplessly. Don't you want to know what the next generation of the strongest village in the ninja world is like? Kakuzu looked at Yamashita and said, then tell me. Hey, why do you feel like I'm begging you? Yamashita was holding back the idea of spoilers and was very dissatisfied with this subordinate who didn't know how to judge the situation. It seems that he will have to reduce this guy's salary later to let him know who is the boss. Then, he seemed to see something, pointed to the front and said, hey, isn't it coming? Kakuzu looked in the direction Yamashita pointed and found 3 children coming towards him, 2 boys and 1 girl. One of the 2 boys looked bored and seemed very negative, and the other was very fat, eating potato chips while walking. The girl was very beautiful, but at this time she was scolding the 2 boys, looking very violent. I say, you two should cheer up. The Chunin exam is about to start. Why are you still so careless? The girl said with great sorrow. I didn't want to participate in this Chunin exam. The boy with a negative face said, by the way, Ino, why are you so concerned about this exam? Ino's mind couldn't help but think of Sasuke, and then her face turned red, and she said angrily, isn't this normal? It's you two who are abnormal, right? Looking at the 3 little ghosts who were coming towards him, Kakuzu asked in confusion, why, are these 3 little ghosts different? These are not little ghosts. These 3 are the children of the 3 noble families of Konoha, Ino, Shika, and Chao, and they may be the power center of Konoha in the future. Yamashita said, and then said with some playfulness, besides, I feel that you have some fate with these 3 guys. In the original work, Kakuzu and Hidden were solved by the Ino, Shika, and Chao trio and Team 7. Me. Kakuzu knew that Yamashita had some strange abilities, and his words were not groundless. However, looking at the 3 young faces in front of him, he didn't think that the 2 sides would have any intersection. He walked forward and directly blocked the 3 people, and then his momentum emanated. The murderous aura that was so thick that it was like substance immediately enveloped the 3 little ones, making them tremble and dare not move. They looked at the ninja who suddenly appeared in front of them with some horror, and didn't understand why such a person would appear in Konoha village. It doesn't look that good. Seeing the predicament of the three people, Kakuzu said with some disdain. When he was the age of the three people, he could already kill without blinking an eye. But now these three people are obviously rookies, and they probably haven't even seen blood. At this time, Yamashita walked up and patted Kakuzu on the shoulder, and the majestic momentum was directly withdrawn. "You are already old, why are you still bullying children?" he said with a smile, then looked at the three people who were a little exhausted, and said, "I'm sorry, little ninjas, although my friend looks fierce, he is actually a good person." The three rolled their eyes in their hearts. How could this man be a good person with such terrible murderous aura? Not paying attention to the performance of the three little ones, he looked at Shikamaru again, smiled and rubbed his hair, and said, "This child is smart at first glance. If you are interested in the future, you can come to my company to work. I can give you the position of general manager secretary." After saying that, he and Kakuzu passed the three people and walked away. "By the way, don't forget to say hello to your parents for me. My last name is Yamashita." Yamashita's voice came from afar. The three little ones were sweating all over, and their legs were a little weak. Just at that moment, they really thought they would be killed in the next moment. Facing that person, they might not even have a chance to resist. Shikamaru, do you know those two people?" Choji's potato chips were scattered all over the floor. He looked at the chips on the floor with some regret, and then asked. Shikamaru also looked like he had just survived a disaster, and said, "I've never seen him before, but he said his last name was Yamashita, and he asked us to say hello to our fathers. I think this person should be the legendary richest man in the ninja world, the boss of Yamashita Industrial Company, Yamashita Kenji, right? Is it that person?" Choji took out another bag of potato chips from somewhere, tore it open, and started eating it with a slurp. No wonder the ninja next to him is so powerful, such a rich man. I think the bodyguards he hired are not ordinary people either. Are you still thinking about that? At this time, Ino also came back to her senses, and said to Shikamaru, "Do you remember what that person said? He is willing to hire you as a secretary. As a secretary for that kind of person. Shikamaru, how high will your salary be in the future?" As Ino said this, her eyes seemed to turn into the shape of money. That, I don't want it. It feels so annoying. Shikamaru scratched his hair, and said with a listless look, "You really are. By the way, are you really interested in that kid?" Kakuzu asked. He knew that his boss would not speak without purpose, and his words were serious, just like when he found him, and invited him to be the financial manager of his company. He thought he was joking, but the facts proved that he was not. The Nera clan is the think tank of Konoha village. Every generation of Hokage has such a person to handle the affairs of the village. If our company has such a person as an assistant, it will definitely make the company's affairs in order, and even go to a higher level. Yamashita Kenji said with reason. Kakuzu nodded at this time. Although he felt that it was a bit too early for the boss to say such words to a child, he could finally understand the boss's thoughts. "Okay, don't think too much, let's go, I'll treat you to noodles," Yamashita Kenji said with a smile, pointing to a ramen shop next to it, with the words, "Ichiraku Ramen," written on the sign. Chapter 18 Conflict. How could you not come to this famous ramen shop when you come to Konoha village? This ramen shop is loved by almost everyone in the Naruto world, and the taste is definitely good. The two walked into the store and found a place to sit down. It may not be time for dinner yet, so there are no other customers in the store, except the two of them. The legendary Otsutsuki Ichiraku looked very kind and enthusiastically recommended the store's signature tonkotsu ramen to the two of them. It was ready in a short while, and served to the two of them. Yamashita took a bite, and felt a little disappointed. It's not that the noodles are not delicious, but it feels like this is the most ordinary Japanese ramen, greasy, nothing surprising, and a little different from what he imagined. This kind of ramen can be widely praised. It seems that people in the Naruto world have never eaten anything good. Kakuzu was amazed. Obviously he had never eaten such delicious ramen, and he ate it very happily. But the way this person eats noodles is a bit weird. Countless black tentacles emerged from his mouth. After turning around in the bowl, they were put into his mouth with noodles and juice. It looked very strange. Even Ichiraku standing at the counter looked a little unnatural. It was obvious that he had never seen such a customer before. "Can't you be more normal? The way you eat looks a bit disgusting." Yamashita couldn't help but complain. Kakuzu rolled his eyes at him and said coldly, "I'm fine as long as I feel comfortable. Why should I care about other people?" Kakuzu is almost 100 years old. Naturally, he should follow his heart. Shouldn't the young people in the ninja world respect the elderly and love the young? At this time, two more people walked in from outside the store. One of them was silent, and the other was jumpy. They also ordered 2 bowls of ramen. Yamashita naturally saw the identities of these two people. Take Kakashi and my guy. Konoha is really different as the center of the ninja world. You can find familiar people every few steps. Yamashita had no intention of approaching and chatting with these two people. Although they were important characters in the original work, they might not be as important to him as people like Narashikamaru. Kakuzu looked at the two people solemnly, especially Kakashi, who made him feel disgusted from the bottom of his heart. Why do I want to kill that white-haired kid for no reason? Yamashita glanced at him and ignored him. After the two finished their noodles, they left the ramen shop directly. "Kakashi, those two people should be the people that the Hokage mentioned, right?" Seeing the two leave, Ake asked mysteriously. "Ake, this is not a bad thing. You don't have to do this." Kakashi said helplessly. "It should be those two. I didn't expect that the well-known rich man in the ninja world is so young. If his cooperation with Konoha village can go smoothly this time, the whole village may be different. Is that so? Then should we follow and protect them? No, there won't be any big danger in Konoha village, and the person next to him is not a simple character." Kakashi miscalculated. Yamashita and Kakuzu just walked out of the ramen shop and came to a relatively open area. They were blocked by a person in front. The man was wearing a tight suit and an animal mask on his face. He stood right in front of the two people. It was obvious that he was not a good person. The two stopped unconsciously and looked at the person on the opposite side. They were ready to fight. "So, who are you?" Yamashita Kenji raised his eyebrows and said he had already guessed the identity of the other party. "So Yamashita, the Hokage wants to ask you something. You have to go with me," the man said coldly. "Hokage? I'm afraid not." Yamashita grinned. "Your boss shouldn't be Sarutobi Hiruzen, right? Let me guess. You are a member of the Root, and it was Tanzo who found me, right?" Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. As soon as Yamashita finished speaking, several ninjas suddenly appeared around and surrounded the two of them. "Please go." The man was still so cold. "To be honest, I didn't want to have any intersection with your Root. Although Danzo is known as the pot cage, he has never had any conflicts with me after all." Yamashita looked at the situation around him and did not panic. Instead, he said slowly, "What a pity. I don't want to cause trouble, but trouble always finds me. I won't say anything about the assassination in the Send village, but this time in Konoha, they actually want to cause trouble for me. Do they really think that my title as a wealthy man in the ninja world is just a decoration?" As he said to Kakuzu, "Make a bigger noise and let Sarutobi Hiruzen see if this is the way their Konoha village treats guests." As soon as he finished speaking, his figure flashed and disappeared. Kakuzu rubbed his wrist and said with a smile, "I haven't done anything for a while, and I'm itching to show off my skills. Come, let me see the strength of the Konoha village ninjas." It seemed as if endless black tentacles emanated from his body. Gradually, 5 kinds of masks appeared in those tentacles. The energy gathered, and in a flash, 5 powerful energies shot out and rushed towards those Root ninjas. Earth style, Earth Spear. Wind style, Suppress Harm. Lightning style, False Darkness. Fire style, Head Hardship. Water style, Water Curtain Tent. Boom 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 boom. The violent explosion sounded almost throughout the entire Konoha village, almost startling all the villagers of Konoha village and those who came to watch the ceremony, and they all looked in the direction of the explosion sound. During the Chunin exam, many people of status in the ninja world came to Konoha village. If something went wrong at this time, Konoha would really be embarrassed in the entire ninja world. Kakashi and Kei had just walked out of the ramen shop when they felt the violent vibration. They looked at each other and rushed directly to the direction where the conflict broke out without any hesitation. When they arrived at the location, they took in everything in the field and were shocked. At this time, several people were lying in the field. Without exception, they were all killed by being pierced through the chest, leaving a big hole in the chest, and the heart was missing. And now, a monster covered with tentacles was fighting with the remaining people, as if playing a game. Several tentacle monsters broke away from his body and kept firing ninjutsu, almost forcing those people into a desperate situation. One person was actually suppressing several people. That is, a ninja from the Anbu? K was shocked. He didn't expect that someone in Konoha village would dare to cause trouble for the Anbu. He was about to rush up to help, but was stopped by Kakashi. Don't be impulsive, K. Wait and see. Kakashi said meaningfully. Chapter 19 An Unprecedented Bounty. Kakashi narrowed his eyes, obviously realizing that the Konoha ninja fighting with the ninja in the field came from the root. He already had a bad impression of the root, and now the other party was fighting with Yamashita's men, who were obviously Konoha's distinguished guests. This kind of thing really made him think too much. I'm afraid that Danzo is behind this matter again, right? So, he didn't decide to rush forward immediately. Hey, you two, we meet again. What a coincidence. Just at this time, a voice came from behind the two. Kakashi's hair stood on end, and he turned around quickly and found that Yamashita Kenji was standing behind them, looking at them with interest. When being touched behind by the other party silently was somewhat unacceptable for a ninja. To some extent, this means that his life is handed over to the other party. Obviously, the richest man in the ninja world, who is not very conspicuous, is not a simple character. Mr. Yamashita, do you know us? Ake obviously didn't think too much, but asked curiously. Yamashita scratched his head and said, Copy Ninja Kakashi, Konoha's blue beast my guy. I'm a businessman. I still need to know this information. Mr. Yamashita, where exactly is this? Kakashi asked. And now in the field, Kakuzu has killed the last root ninja, took out his heart, and sealed it in the scroll. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. At this time, more ninjas jumped out and surrounded Kakuzu. There were many ninjas with extraordinary bearing among them, and they were not simple characters at first glance. And from the crowd, an old ninja slowly walked out. This ninja had one eye, and one arm wrapped in bandages, and the whole person looked very decayed, but from his occasionally revealed eyes, one could feel a hint of ferocity. He looked around the field, and said in a deep and hoarse voice, You dared to kill people in Konoha village. You really don't take the village seriously. And you too, seeing the ninjas of your own village being slaughtered, you actually stood aside and watched. It's really shocking. Is this what Hiruzen taught you? The old man's words were aggressive. Not only did he put the two people under the opposite side of Konoha, but he also held Kakashi and the other two. Danzo, it's not. Okay, I don't want to hear your explanation. Danzo shouted, and then said coldly, You two still think you are Konoha's ninjas, so take down these two villains who slaughtered the ninjas of your own village. After being told this by the other party, Kakashi was immediately embarrassed. Knowing that this was actually Danzo's conspiracy, as Konoha's ninjas, they had to protect the interests of Konoha. At present, it seems that the best choice is to control the other party and then find the Hokage. Thinking of this, Kakashi's eyes changed when he looked at the two people at Yamashita. Stop it, Danzo. At this moment, another voice came, and an old man with a pipe in his mouth slowly walked over from a distance. Seeing the old man coming, Kakashi breathed a sigh of relief and looked at Yamashita Kenji with a little apology. Yamashita stretched and said to the third Hokage, I say, Hokage-sama, it seems that your Konoha village does not welcome me very much. If you have any objections to this cooperation, then we can completely give up the cooperation and don't have to do this kind of thing. Mr. Yamashita, please be patient. Sarutobi Hiruzen said, then looked at Danzo with some annoyance and said, Danzo, you are too much. You actually did such a thing to the guests of our Konoha village. Apologize to Mr. Yamashita. HMPH. Danzo snorted coldly and said angrily, Hiruzen, the people who died this time are our Konoha village ninjas. Don't you even care about this? Do you think I don't know what the matter is? Sarutobi Hiruzen said sternly, if you hadn't started the trouble first, how could there be such a conflict? You are too weak, Hiruzen. If according to my plan, we don't need to be so humble. Danzo, I'm the Hokage. Hiruzen, you will regret it. The two quarreled for a while, and Danzo glared at Yamashita fiercely, and then left with his men. Sarutobi Hiruzen sighed helplessly, and then apologized to Yamashita. "I'm sorry, Mr. Yamashita, you were threatening Konoha village." Yamashita shrugged indifferently. "It doesn't matter, I didn't suffer any loss anyway. It's good that your Konoha village didn't change its mind." Sarutobi Hiruzen nodded and said, "Don't worry about this, we attach great importance to this cooperation. And I have agreed to all the things you mentioned before. You can contact Kakashi directly when the time comes." As he said, he turned his head and looked at Kakashi and said, "Kakashi, here I will assign you a temporary task. During the Chunin exam, stay by Mr. Yamashita's side to ensure his safety and cooperate with him to complete what he wants to do." After that, he apologized to Yamashita again and then left. I didn't expect that the Hokage of Konoha village is so polite. Kakuzu wiped the blood from his hands and said with some surprise, "No matter who is right or wrong in this matter today, Konoha has lost a lot of ninjas." He originally thought that the other party would use this as an excuse to attack them, but he didn't expect that the other party would let it go so easily. It was really a bit unexpected. "I can imagine," Yamashita said. "Konoha is no longer the largest village in the ninja world. They also need to change, and the key to change is us." Although Yamashita's words were a bit overbearing, they were all facts and irrefutable. However, the other party wants to let it go. "I won't let it go just like that," Yamashita suddenly said again. Once at the Sand Village, and once again at the Hidden Leaf Village, it's obvious that Danzo has set his sights on us, and thinks we are a soft persimmon. Although we made the other side suffer a small loss this time, if we don't make them bleed, such incidents will happen more and more. So, President, what are you going to do? I heard that you are very familiar with the underground gold exchange, right, Kakuzu? Help me post a bounty for the heads of root members to the entire ninja world. For each head of a root genin, the bounty is 5 million ryo. For each head of a root chunin, the bounty is 10 million ryo. For each head of a root jonin, the bounty is 30 million ryo. These are general standards. If you can provide the heads of elite jonins, the bounty can be appropriately increased. As for Danzo himself, I will offer him a bounty of 500 million ryo. I will offer a bounty of 500 million ryo to anyone who can kill him. I want to let him know that money, as long as it is a certain amount, is also very terrifying in the ninja world. Chapter 20, Decade Konoha. As soon as these words came out, everyone in the field suddenly fell silent, and they all looked at Yamashita Kenji with a calm face. "Boss, are you serious?" Kakuzu asked. Yamashita nodded and said, "Of course it's true. As the richest man in the ninja world, I won't joke about this. I can still afford that little money. Ahem." Kakuzu seemed to have come back to his senses, looked at Yamashita with a serious face, and said, "Boss, I think I can do this task, just leave it to me." Looking at Kakuzu's money-grubbing look, Yamashita was a little speechless. He didn't treat him unfairly. As the financial manager of his own company, his salary was already the highest in the entire company, and he also owned a part of the company's shares. Over such a long time, this guy must have accumulated a lot of assets. Not to mention comparing himself, it should be no problem for him to rank in the top 50 in the ninja world. Don't think that the top 50 is not that great. There are many tycoons in this world, and the daimyo of each country also control most of the country's wealth. It is already amazing that Kakuzu, as an amateur, can be ranked in the top 50. But even so, this guy is still eager for such a small profit, which really makes him speechless. I say, Kakuzu, how many times have I told you? Pattern. Yamashita looked heartbroken and said, "Your assets are not saved, but spent. You are running around for this little bit of profit now, which is not generous at all. You will miss many real opportunities to make money in the future." Although Yamashita said it, Kakuzu was still reluctant to give up, and said, "How about I send you the head of that old guy? I want that bonus." "No," Yamashita said firmly, "you have to listen to me on this matter, and do as I say. As my subordinate, if you really kill the other party, I will not be able to explain to Konoha." You two, have you forgotten about us?" Kakashi was a little helpless. The two of them were actually discussing the bounty on Konoha ninjas in front of them. Isn't this a bit too much of a disregard for them? At this time, Yamashita looked at Kakashi and said with sudden realization, "Oh, I forgot about the two of you. It is true that this is not a very decent thing to do. But I think Mr. Kakashi should be able to understand it, right?" Kakashi looked at him deeply and said, "I will report this matter to the Hokage." "Oh, it's really troublesome." Yamashita scratched his head as if he was distressed and then said to Kakashi, "In fact, Mr. Kakashi, in your heart, you should also want to get rid of Danzo as soon as possible, right?" Kakashi's pupils shrank and said, "Mr. Yamashita, what do you mean by this?" "Mr. Kakashi, you don't need to pretend like this in front of me, right?" Yamashita smiled slightly and then said, "As the mainstay of Konoha village and an absolute middle-level figure, can't you see the current problems of Konoha?" As he said that, he glanced at Ake, who was also silent, and continued, "I think even Ake, who is careless all day long, should have seen it, right? Although Konoha village was the winner of all 3 ninja world wars, it never gained any benefits from the wars, but instead consumed a lot of resources. Of course, resources are secondary, and the loss of talent is the biggest loss for Konoha village. A large number of ninjas who should have achieved something were either lost in the war, or killed by their own people. While creating orphans, the power center of Konoha has never been replaced. They are all corrupt old people. These old people are represented by the third Hokage. Their spirit has long been wiped out in wars. In fact, it can be seen from the Third Ninja World War that letting these people take power is no longer a blessing for the village, but a disaster. And at this time, Minato came to power. At this point, Yamashita looked at Kakashi and said, "Your 4th Hokage, I think you should be very familiar with him, right?" Kakashi was silent. The 4th Hokage, Minato Namikaze, he was naturally familiar with, because he was his mentor. Speaking of this young ninja, he is definitely the best choice for Hokage. Not only did he make great achievements in the 3 wars, but he is also sunny and cheerful, and has a deep friendship with the Uchiha clan. If he comes to power, Konoha village will definitely be able to reverse its decline, and become great again. Yamashita paused deliberately, then changed the subject and said, "But, it's a pity that God is jealous of talents, and this Hokage died at dawn. Konoha village also lost its son, and returned to decay again. I think you should know what happened afterwards." Kakashi was silent for a moment, then asked, "I still don't understand. Why are you telling me all this? Do you really not understand, or are you pretending not to understand?" Yamashita questioned, "Whose fault do you think is that Konoha village has reached this point? Is there really no one among the younger generation of Konoha village who is worthy of the position of Hokage? Why is the power center of Konoha village still the same as those 20 or even 30 years ago? Or, let me make it clearer. Are there really so many coincidences in this world? Those who died on the battlefield are the future of Konoha village, while those who are corrupt have all survived? Senju Noaki, Kato Dan, Namikaze Minato, even Konoha White Fang and Hatake Tsukumo?" When these words came out, Kakashi's eyes widened, and his whole body trembled. Yamashita knew that his words had touched the other party's heart, so he continued to add fuel to the fire. "By the way, is your father, Hatake Tsukumo, really the mission he had as rumored by the outside world? Such a ninja who had made great achievements in the war was really targeted by the villagers of Konoha village because of the failure of a mission, and even the ninja he saved turned against him. Is this really natural, or is there someone who is fanning the flames? If it is fanning the flames, then who is this person? Is it the third Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen who thinks that the other party's fame is in the ascendant and his achievements are greater than his master? Or is it the Konoha Darkness, Shimura Danzo, who has always coveted the position of Hokage and thinks that the other party is a threat to himself?" Yamashita said with a smile, throwing all the conspiracy theories he had seen on the website in his previous life to Kakashi. And now, looking at Kakashi's appearance, it seems that the effect is good. Chapter 21: The Breeding Ground for Conspiracy Theories. On the whole, the plot of the manga Naruto is not very rigorous. There are many plots that are not worth pondering and are very unreasonable. This has led to many people on the internet in the previous life being keen to discuss conspiracy theories based on the plot, and they are never tired of it. To be honest, with Kishimoto's political mind and screenwriter level, those so-called plot loopholes and unreasonable places are probably just because he is not good enough and can't justify himself, rather than leaving metaphors and alluding to the upper politics of Konoha Village. Unfortunately, people seem to be more keen on conspiracy theories, and these conspiracy theories just make up for those plot loopholes, which give some people more motivation to play with memes and dig out details. As the saying goes, wild history may not be true enough, but it must be wild enough. That's the reason. Among the many conspiracy theories, Konoha Whitefang died in an internal struggle among the upper class is also a well-known one. Konoha Whitefang, Hatake Tsukumo, as a hero of Konoha Village in World War II, was abused and slandered by the villagers of the entire village, just because he gave up the mission to protect his teammates during a mission. Even the ninja he saved turned against him, which completely pushed this person to the cusp of the storm. So, unable to bear the pressure of public opinion, he chose to commit suicide. It's outrageous. A ninja who conservatively estimated the strength of the shadow level was actually glass-hearted and died for such an outrageous reason. It's really not the reader's fault for thinking about it, because it's really outrageous. There are many conspiracy theories about this matter, but the most well-known one is the Danzo assassination theory. This conspiracy theory believes that Konoha Whitefang, who performed well in World War II, has a reputation enough to serve as a Hokage, which poses a threat to Danzo, who has always wanted to become a Hokage. So he set a trap, based on Tsukumo's personality, deliberately let him give up the mission, and let the roots spread rumors in the village, fanning the flames, and eventually led to his death. If this is the case, it also explains why the villagers would know the details of such a confidential mission. This conspiracy theory is very popular, and it almost became a consensus among Naruto fans, and is well known to people. However, in fact, there is no detail in the original work that hints at the relevant details. All of the above are recreations by readers, based on the plot, commonly known as secondary creation. In fact, it is more likely that Kishimoto wanted to write a tragic hero to enrich Kakishi's image, so he made up such a plot to highlight Kakishi's misery and the reason why he insisted on protecting his companions later. As for whether the villagers of Konoha Village will reject their hero, that's great. Didn't you see what happened to Naruto in Konoha Village? And the faces of those people after Naruto really saved Konoha. The villagers of Konoha Village are the most assholes in the ninja world. Most of the people killed by Pain's Shinra Tensei deserve to die. It's just that Kishimoto's ability is limited, and he couldn't make a more reasonable plot for everyone, which created the conditions for the conspiracy theory. However, these are not important to Yamashita. It is precisely because of so many unreasonable things that Yamashita can use them to confuse Kakashi. He doesn't need to say anything in detail, just simply tell the facts, and then with a little guidance, the smart Kakashi will automatically drift his thoughts to where he wants. Looking at Kakashi's uncertain expression now, Yamashita knew that he had succeeded. So, he added fuel to the fire and said, "So, Mr. Kakashi, do you want to be loyal to that person now? Or do you want to make friends with me who can completely change Konoha?" Yamashita's efforts are not in vain. Although he is familiar with the subsequent plot, because of his participation, the plot is likely to change uncontrollably, and at this time, it is undoubtedly better for him to have more help. And Kakashi not only has a certain status in Konoha, but also has a close relationship with the two protagonists, and is in love and hate with the big boss behind the scenes, Uchiha Obito. He can be said to be a very key figure. It is very beneficial for me to have a good relationship with this person. Seeing Kakashi silent, Ake said worriedly, "Kakashi, you." "I know, Ake." Kakashi gave Ake a reassuring look, then looked at Yamashita Kenji and said, "Mr. Yamashita, I'm sorry, I will tell the Hokage about what happened today. However, I can tell you the time after you leave Konoha. I also hope that such a thing will not harm the friendship between you and Konoha, and our cooperation can continue." Seeing the other party like this, Yamashita also smiled. He knew that Kakashi was indeed shaken, otherwise he would not say that he would report such things to the Hokage after he left the village. By then, it is not certain whether the third Hokage will still be alive. It's good to listen to it. With the cooperation of Kakashi, an elite jonin, it will be smoother. to transform Konoha village in the future. Don't worry, I have a clear distinction between gratitude and resentment, and I will not let the grudges between me and the root spread to other places, Yamashita said, patting his chest. That's good. Kakashi looked at Kei and said apologetically, sorry, Kei, please keep it a secret for me. This kind of thing is nothing. Kei was still so cheerful, just make sure what you want. Okay, I still have to give Zyoli and the other special training before the exam, so I won't accompany you. Kei said hello to everyone and left directly. This guy's also a master at pretending to be confused. Although he looks careless and unreliable, he is actually a character with high IQ and EQ. You can tell from the fact that he secretly practiced the 8 gates to the death gate and raised his strength to the 6 paths level. If you have time, you can also talk to this guy. Seeing Kei leave, Yamashita continued, then, the next thing will be up to you, Kakashi. Kakashi asked with some confusion, so, what did the Hokage promise you? What do I need to do? Yamashita said mysteriously, what did he promise me? It's very simple. He promised me that after this Chunin exam, he can bring a few ninjas who took the exam, as well as some jonin, to my company for internship and to learn about engineering related matters. Of course, in order to enable me to better select personnel, I will participate in the 3 Chunin exams this time as an examiner. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 22 New Rewards. In order to deepen the cooperation with Konoha and keep an eye on the changes in the plot, Yamashita made such a request to the 3rd Hokage. This request is naturally reasonable. Konoha and his company are about to cooperate, so it is natural to find a group of people to understand the details of the project. As for why he wants to find some genin to join his company, according to Yamashita, he wants to train relevant talents in Konoha. If their company is short of people in the future, they will recruit all those who have received basic training in the form of tasks. The 3rd Hokage was very concerned about this matter at first. But after the incident with Danzo, a crack appeared in the cooperation. In order to make up for it, he directly agreed to Yamashita's request. Although Kakashi was a little surprised about this matter, he did not ask too much, but directly led Yamashita to the question-setting group of Konoha's exam. Since he participated in the exam as an examiner, even if he did not need to participate in the exam in depth, at least some process information should be understood. Here, Yamashita saw many well-known ninjas from Konoha village, including Ibiki from the torture department, Mitara Shianko who had not yet gained weight, and the sickly Gekao Hayate. These people were a little surprised to learn that Yamashita, an outsider, would also join the team of examiners. However, these people were professional ninjas after all, and they knew that there were some things they did not need to know, so they did not ask too many questions. At this time, the process of the exam had been basically confirmed. The written test, the survival battle in the Death Forest, and the final elimination round. Basically the competition system did not change from the original plot. And now these people are finally confirming the written test paper. Yamashita glanced at the test paper and found that the questions on it were more like high school physics questions, all of which were calculation problems in real situations, such as the projection angle of shuriken, the best position when hiding, etc. If you don't go through special training, you may not be able to answer all of them. But Yamashita was not very satisfied with this test paper. It was full of questions about combat and assassination, and there were no questions about infrastructure. No wonder ninjas only know how to kill. There are so few scientists. It turns out that the root is here. So he thought about it and said, I want to add an additional question at the end, to see the level of the Konoha village genin. Is that okay? Everyone looked at him in surprise, and turned to look at Kakashi at the same time. This gentleman is a guest invited by the Hokage, and the Hokage specially arranged him to join the examiner group. Kakashi said. Since that has been said, everyone naturally has no objection to him adding a test question. Yamashita thought about it, and then wrote at the end of the sample paper, try to elaborate on your understanding and knowledge of technology. Ibaki did not expect that Yamashita actually gave an open-ended question. This kind of question obviously has no standard answer and is not very suitable to appear in such a test paper. Mr. Yamashita, this question, I'm afraid it's not very suitable. Yamashita smiled and replied, it doesn't matter, Mr. Ibaki, there is no need to give points for this question. I just want to know how the children answer my question. Since the other party said so, Ibaki had no objection, so he discussed the details of the exam with the examiners again. After finishing what he wanted to do, Yamashita was a little bored and found a chair nearby to sit down. At this time, Kakuzu had already left Konoha and went to the underground gold exchange with his bounty. It would not take long before Denzo's route would be exhausted and no longer have the time to target him. At this moment, Yamashita was stunned and his system panel automatically appeared in front of him. Ding. Task progress change prompt. Ongoing task. Wind Country South to North Water Diversion Project. Completion 1%. 10%. Congratulations to the player for entering the first stage of the Wind Country South to North Water Diversion Project task progress. Reward. Advanced Puppet Masterful Skills. My task progress has changed, and I have completed so many at once. Why is this? I don't seem to have done anything related to the project during this period. After a little thought, Yamashita figured it out. Before I went to lobby various countries, I arranged for Amado to join the South to North Water Diversion Project group to complete the 3 problems that temporarily hindered the project. And now, the progress of the task has increased to 10% at once, which means that all the early problems of this project should have been solved, right? In this way, does it mean that this project can finally be officially started? Thinking of this, Yamashita couldn't sit still and wanted to directly use Flying Thunder God to return to the Kingdom of Soup to officially start this project. But he finally calmed down. This kind of thing can't be rushed. Even if he goes back, the project can't start immediately. Moreover, he also has things to do in Konoha Village. Thinking of this, he settled down and looked at his task reward instead. It's actually related to puppetry. This system is really awesome. Before, I was thinking about how to get the puppetry, and this was directly rewarded to me, and it was given to me at the top in one wave, directly to the advanced level. I just don't know what level this high quality puppetry has reached. Is it like the Otsutsuki on the moon, where chakra lines can no longer be used to control puppets? Seeing that no one was paying attention to him, he directly withdrew the reward. Instantly, he felt a huge amount of information entering his mind, which was all about the knowledge related to puppetry. Then, his eyes went dark, and he finally knew the value of the word high level in puppetry. In the judgment of the system, puppetry is divided into 3 levels: high level, special level, and super high level. In other words, what Yamashita obtained was the lowest level of puppetry in the judgment of the system. This grading standard, isn't it a complete bit full? Exclamation mark. However, fortunately, even the lowest level of puppetry is quite powerful. According to the previous information, his current level of puppetry is basically the same as Chiyo's, and he can control up to 10 puppets at the same time. Although the actions of various puppets will not affect each other, it can be said to be very powerful. Not to mention, this information also contains various techniques and skills for making puppets. In short, to put it bluntly, his current puppetry strength is basically at the same level as Chiyo. With this puppetry, I finally have some means of attack, and I don't have to use the Flying Thunder God technique all the time to sneak attack. It can be said that my current strength has undergone a qualitative change. Of course, that was after I made the puppets. And next, what I have to do is to quickly make some puppets to improve my combat power. Chapter 23 New Inventions of Puppetry. After that, Yamashita's life became much more regular. Every day, he would go to the question setting group to slack off, listen to those people's discussions about some details of the Chunin exam, and then get along with Kakashi, and then practice puppetry, and try to make some puppets. Speaking of puppetry, he found that this secret art is really profound. Although it is not very obvious in the original work, Yamashita knew as soon as he got started that, as long as it is used properly, this thing definitely has infinite possibilities. Just after getting started, he tried to make a puppet called Den Mushi. This thing can be used as long as chakra is injected in a specific way. The user can speak to it, and those words will be emitted by the Den Mushi in a specific frequency of electromagnetic waves, and then received and analyzed by another Den Mushi, and then converted into normal frequency sound and spoken out, with a range of about 5 kilometers. This thing is a bit like a telephone, and it may play an unexpected role in some specific situations. More importantly, there is no threshold for the use of this thing, and anyone can use it, which greatly increases its popularity. Although Yamashita has not yet solved the problem of point-to-point communication, it is only a matter of time. This problem will be solved soon. It seems that, when I go back, my company will have another powerful product. Although this small invention seems simple, it is because Yamashita Kenji himself has knowledge of puppetry comparable to Chiyo, who is considered to be the top 3 in the ninja world. Compared with Chiyo, he has such a rich experience in his previous life and a more open mind, so he can develop such a device in such a short time. If it were Kankuro, a guy who has no spiritual energy at all, he would not be able to research such a thing for many years. And Yamashita's research on such a device was naturally seen by Kakashi. Kakashi was surprised that Yamashita actually knew the secret ninjutsu of the Sand Village. You know, the puppetry of the Sand Village is a powerful secret technique that is famous in the ninja world. Konoha has been fighting with the opponent for so long, but has not obtained that secret technique. Now it appears in Yamashita's hands. Obviously, there is some unknown secret in it. However, since this matter had nothing to do with Konoha, and was only a matter between Yamashita and the Sand Village, Kakashi had no interest in exploring it. However, this so-called Den Mushi did arouse Kakashi's interest. He was a ninja with outstanding achievements, and naturally knew the value of this device in missions and battlefields. So, he asked directly, "Mr. Yamashita, do you want to sell this Den Mushi?" Yamashita looked at Kakashi and said with a smile, "Of course, as a businessman, I have a valuable product, so I have to sell it. Why, Mr. Kakashi, are you interested in this thing too?" Kakashi nodded. This thing is of great value to ninjas. If Mr. Yamashita is willing to sell it, it can indeed increase the completion rate of Konoha Village ninja missions. There is no rush for the time being, Yamashita said. This thing has not been fully developed yet, and there are many defects. Let me study it further. When the research is almost done, I will trade with your village. However, I can make a few test versions first, and give them to your team, Kakashi. Kakashi was stunned. My team? Yes. Yamashita said as a matter of course. Mr. Kakashi, didn't the Genin team you led also participate in this Chunin exam? I think this thing should be of some help to your team. Kakashi hesitated, not knowing whether it was appropriate to do so. Okay, don't think so much, Yamashita said decisively. It's nothing more than a few special equipment, and it doesn't break the rules of the exam. You don't have to be so shy. Let's go, take me to see Mr. Kakashi's disciples, and I'll see what those guys can do. Seeing that the other party had said so, Kakashi naturally had nothing to say, so he took Yamashita to find Team 7. But he didn't expect that Naruto and his friends would now confront the 3 people from the Sand Village. Looking at the people who were hostile to each other, Yamashita felt a familiar sense of deja vu. Oh, this is a famous group photo. Seeing this, he walked up and said, "Yo, look who I saw." Everyone looked at him. The 3 members of Team 7 and Konohamaru were all confused, while the 3 members of Sand Village were surprised and delighted. "Mr. Yamashita, you are here too?" Temari came over and asked. "What are you talking about?" Yamashita said, "As a partner of Konoha Village and a famous businessman in the ninja world, isn't it natural for me to participate in such an event?" "That's right." The 3 of them understood. "Hey, who are you?" Naruto saw that the people were very enthusiastic and obviously knew each other. He had a bad impression of Yamashita and spoke very impolitely. "Naruto, what's your attitude?" Kakashi also came up at this time, took a deep look at the people of Sand Village, especially Gaara, who was given special attention by him, and then said to Naruto and others, "This Mr. Yamashita Kenji is our distinguished friend of Konoha Village, and he is also the examiner of this Chunin exam. As soon as these words came out, Naruto was suddenly struck by lightning, as if the whole world collapsed. This guy is the examiner? Then wouldn't his attitude just now make him hate him directly? It's over. This Chunin exam is doomed to fail. Of course, this may not be a bad thing. At least he, Uzumaki Naruto, is the first ninja in the entire Konoha village to prepare for the next Chunin exam. Ignoring Naruto Uzumaki's wild thoughts, Yamashita said to the people from the Sand village, "You guys are really capable of stirring up trouble. The son of the Kazekage of the Sand village is targeting the grandson of the Hokage of the Leaf village. Are you trying to start another ninja world war? What? This brat is the grandson of the Hokage? Ah, the son of the Kazekage is such a problem boy." Kankuro and Konohamaru's voices rang out almost at the same time, and then they looked at each other with hostility, unwilling to give in. "Okay, let's end this matter here," Yamashita said, and at this time Kakashi also intervened and persuaded the people from the Leaf village to calm down. The Sand village trio, because of what they had experienced together in the Land of Rain, respected Yamashita very much, and naturally there was no reason not to listen to what he said. "By the way, I forgot to ask, is the Kazekage of your village also here to participate in this Chunin exam?" Chapter 24 Jinkriki. Yamashita's question was not a casual one. Whether the fourth Kazekage Rasa would attend the Chunin exam would directly affect the development of the plot. If he came to Konoha, he would be killed by Orochimaru as in the original plot. In this way, everything that happened next would be the same as in the original plot. If the Kazekage did not attend the exam this time because of himself, then everything that happened next might change. Although Orochimaru was a bit cruel, he was still a rare talent in the ninja world. If there was a chance, Yamashita still hoped to recruit him. Lord Kazekage did not attend this exam because he had to deal with the project and communicate some details with the daimyo of the Wind Country. "We were led by Mr. Maki," Kankuro said honestly. Yamashita nodded. In this way, Rasa survived, which saved the project from any more accidents. Afterwards, the people from the Sand village said goodbye to Yamashita and left directly. After a while, only the members of Team 7 and Yamashita Kenji were left in the field. "So, these kids are your disciples, Mr. Kakashi?" Yamashita said with a smile. The three kids looked at the young and somewhat overly young guy in front of them with some curiosity. Judging from the attitude of Kakashi and the ninjas of Sand village towards this guy should be a person of great status. Unfortunately, they have never heard of this person's name. "Yes, these three are my disciples, Uzumaki Naruto, Daruno Sakura, and Uchiha Sasuke," Kakashi said. Yamashita looked nostalgic, thinking back to when he was chasing him. He was still a child whose hair had not grown up yet. In the blink of an eye, he became a child whose hair had not grown up yet again. The three of them have a good relationship now, and they can trust each other. However, it won't be long before the three of them will directly disperse. When they gather together to fight again, it will be the Fourth Ninja World War 3 years later. This is really a bit of fate. Of course, now that I exist, whether the plot will develop in the same way in the future is not certain. Thinking about it, he looked at Naruto, who was still a little nervous, and said with a smile, "Mr. Kakashi, your three disciples are really extraordinary. If I'm not mistaken, this kid should be the Jinchuriki of your village, right?" After these words came out, the three little ones looked confused, but Kakashi looked serious and said, "Mr. Yamashita, how did you? How could I know?" Yamashita said, "You should ask. Why don't I know? Your Konoha village is interesting. You have no intention of hiding the village's killer weapon at all. You let the whole village know about it so openly. Are you expecting your opponents to assassinate them? Again, because Kishimoto did not make a complete setting for the entire comic before, many loopholes in the early stage were not explained clearly, including the identity of Naruto. As a strategic weapon of the village did not say that it concealed his identity and trained him well, but actually let the whole village know about his existence and made them hostile to him. This kind of thing is unacceptable, no matter how you look at it. Jinchuriki will be corrupted by the chakra of the tailed beasts in his body, and his emotions are not very stable. Now he is stimulated like this. If any other person were in Naruto's position, it would be impossible for him to simply protect Konoha, not to mention turning evil and taking revenge. Therefore, the loophole in this place cannot be explained in the original work. The son of a hero not only did not receive the treatment he deserved, but his entire childhood was shrouded in disgust. This is really outrageous. It is precisely because it is too outrageous that there are many conspiracy theories in the previous life to explain this part of the plot. One of the more representative ones is that this is the result of the struggle among the upper class, and it is all Danzo's fault. To be honest, although Danzo is an out-and-out bastard, it is indeed unreasonable to put all the blame on him. Kakashi heard the question from Yamashita and did not answer. In fact, he did not know the reason and did not understand why the Hokage did that. Mr. Yamashita, you said I'm a Jinchuriki. What is that? Naruto suddenly remembered the fox in his body, so he asked hurriedly. You don't know? Yamashita was a little surprised, looked at Kakashi who was hesitant to speak, thought for a while, and then said with a smile, the so-called Jinchuriki, in simple terms, are those humans who have powerful tailed beasts, demon beasts, sealed in their bodies. Those, you mean, I'm not unique? Are there other people like me in this world? Naruto asked hurriedly. Of course. Yamashita said. What is sealed in your body is called the Nine Tails. Since there is a Nine Tails, there are naturally 1, 2, and 3 tails. These monsters are collectively called tailed beasts. These tailed beasts are very powerful. If you can find a way to obtain their power, you will have an absolute advantage on the battlefield. However, most of these tailed beasts are unruly. It is extremely difficult to control their power. Even if you crush the opponent in terms of strength, you cannot make them surrender. So, people develop the weapon Jinchuriki. Seal the tailed beast in a person's body, live and die together, so that person can use the power of the tailed beast to become the ultimate weapon on the battlefield. This is the truth of Jinchuriki. Yamashita's words were neither hurried nor slow, but every word weighed heavily on the people in the field, making them feel surprisingly heavy. Although the other party said it simply, how many people would die for this ultimate weapon? How many people will be despised and unacceptable like Naruto? So, I'm just a weapon. Hearing this, Naruto, who was cheerful, fell silent. Thinking back to the villagers who always hated him, was it because of this reason? Naruto, don't think too much. The matter is very complicated and can't be explained in a few words. Kakashi saw Naruto's look and said hurriedly. So, what Mr. Yamashita said is all false? Naruto asked. Kakashi was silent immediately. Although Konoha's attitude towards Naruto was complicated, it was not without the intention of using him as a weapon, so he could not answer this question. You don't have to be so depressed, Naruto. Names such as Jinchuriki and Yayoko are given to you by others, not what you want. More importantly, what kind of person do you want to be? Yamashita said suddenly. Chapter 25 Secret. Yamashita's words were so heart-touching that everyone in the room couldn't help but think about this question. What kind of person do you want to be? Kakashi thought of his father who committed suicide and the 2 friends who died before him. What kind of person does he want to be? This question has been irrelevant to him for a long time. Hiruno Sakura's head turned. Who do you want to be? For herself, she still wants to be Sasuke's wife. Thinking about it, she looked at Sasuke beside her, and her cheeks turned red unconsciously. Well, worthy of being brother Sakura, he is still so out of tune. Sasuke recalled that night and that person. From that day on, it didn't matter what kind of person you want to be. What mattered was that you must kill that person. Naruto was stunned in place, and his life over the years flashed through his mind like a revolving lantern. Finally, an idea appeared and took shape in his mind, making him more determined. He nodded firmly at Yamashita and said, "Thank you, Mr. Yamashita, I understand." Seeing that the other party had regained his cheerful look, Yamashita was also relieved. Don't let his words make the protagonist autistic, that would really backfire. Thinking of this, he looked at Sasuke on the side and said, "Uchiha Sasuke, right? The orphan of the Uchiha clan. Seeing your bitter and resentful look, you should be the kind of guy who is immersed in hatred and wants to seek revenge on your enemies, right?" Sasuke frowned and said, "What does it have to do with you?" "It doesn't matter, but I met your brother in the land of hot springs before, and he told me some inside information. How should I put it? It's very exciting. As a businessman, Yamashita never tells lies without thinking." Obviously, Sasuke took this seriously and asked hurriedly, What did he tell you?" Well, I'm sorry, I'm not obligated to tell you, Yamashita said. Sasuke was very anxious, trying to get something out of Yamashita's mouth, but he was powerless, and could only be so helpless and furious. And this one, Hiruno Sakura, right? Yamashita finally looked at Sakura. She was indeed a pretty little girl. It was understandable that little Naruto had a good impression of her. However, he had no interest in her. He could say in front of Sasuke and Kakashi that Naruto was a child without parents and scolded 3 people in Team 7 at the same time. With such an IQ, if this guy hadn't been lucky enough to be assigned to the same team as Naruto and Sasuke, he would have been a passerby. Okay, that's it, Mr. Kakashi, Yamashita said, throwing 3 den mushi to the 3 little guys, roughly explaining how to use this thing, and then said to Kakashi, I have no problem here, let's go. With that, the 2 of them left directly. The 3 little ones played with the new things in their hands, all with a sense of novelty. Hey, Sakura, can you hear me? Naruto said. Are you crazy, Naruto? We are less than 2 meters apart. How can I not hear you talking so loudly? Hiruno Sakura said that she didn't want to pay attention to this idiot. She turned to look at Sasuke and asked, Sasuke, are you still thinking about what that guy said? That guy is so mysterious, maybe he is lying. No. Sasuke said flatly, I can feel that the guy really knows some secrets that I don't know, but the guy doesn't want to tell me. Sasuke was itching to get the secret from Yamashita Kenji, but with his current strength and status, it was impossible for him to force the other party to tell the secret, which made him feel even more insignificant about his own strength. It's okay, Sasuke, that man looks easy to talk to. You can ask him a few more times later, and I think he will tell you. Naruto said carelessly, and then he seemed to have thought of something, deliberately showing off his muscles and said, it doesn't matter, even if he doesn't say it. Didn't you hear what he said? I'm the Jinchuriki. People like us will have power far beyond that of ordinary ninjas. When I figure out how to extract the power of the stinky fox, I will help you suppress your brother and let him tell you in person what the secret is. Sasuke looked at Naruto speechlessly. He really couldn't understand how Naruto could say such a thing without any worries. Obviously, that person said it very clearly. Naruto is used as a weapon by the village. Isn't this kind of thing worthy of his lowering his interest for a while? No need, I will take care of the problem of that man myself. Sasuke ended the topic directly, then picked up the den mushi and said, next, let's try this thing and prepare for the Chunin exam. Okay, X2. Seeing the 3 protagonists, the seeds were planted in their hearts. Yamashita was in a good mood and walked briskly, but Kakashi was a little worried. Finally, he asked, Mr. Yamashita, it seems that you are very interested in my apprentice? Indeed. Yamashita admitted decisively, I have said before that after this exam, I will find a few ninjas to intern in our company, so I will naturally observe the ninjas in your village. Since I have to select, I will naturally select those ninjas with special talents. And now, Mr. Kakashi, among the 3 people in Team 7, 2 of them are very consistent with my selection principles. Knowing that the other party actually planned to recruit Naruto and Sasuke to join his company, Kakashi frowned even more tightly. The identities of these 2 people are very sensitive, and it is obviously impossible to let them join another organization. I think this matter is a bit difficult, Kakashi said honestly. Yamashita smiled and said, indeed, but who knows? What if? Yamashita knew that after this Chunin exam, Konoha would fall into a power vacuum period. At that time, the possibility of taking Naruto and Sasuke away would be greatly increased. Of course, it didn't matter if he couldn't take it with him. This was just a casual move by Yamashita. His foundation was still his own system and the project that was about to be officially launched. Yamashita said hello to Kakashi and asked about the location of the 3 little people from the Sand village. In the evening, he went to see them again and said some words of encouragement to them. At the same time, he also aligned the project granularity with Maki and then left. 3 days later, the Chunin exam officially began. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.